Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us in as we get into the UFO world tonight, as we need to teach people this subject, to let them learn that they are going to get into the woo one way or another from a great podcast and YouTube channel called The Good Trouble Show. Matt Ford is with us. You may not know his name, but I'll tell you, this guy has a great shirt and tie combination going on. Seriously, hair is perfect. Perfect. You'll meet Matt here momentarily, but first, let's say hello to all of you. And we have Ann B in the gold medal position, Nightmare with the silver, Race Fan back in the bronze medal tonight, High Paramarv, Roy Boy, Brown Dwarf, Thurston Howell III. How you guys doing? Luscious Jules, good to see you. Hi, Chris 716. Jen A, love you, honey. How you doing? Hope you're having a good night. Kurt M and D Cohen and Dutch Hank, how are you all? Obi Flett is here. Obi Flett will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Mad Kiwi, DC, how you guys doing? Wearing Anders Hedberg's old number 31. Starting in goal tonight, Lars Jansson from Stockholm, Sweden. There he is. Lars will be signing autographs after the show as well. Light up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Do not make eye contact. Goalies don't like eye contact. All right, Marlena, how are you? Hi, Pixie Lara and friend of Squirrel. Eliza Delata, welcome to SOR Chat. Forrest Louie, thank you for joining us as we continue on with our roll call in the chat room tonight. Oob to Joe's Maine, you've got UFOs. And Mark Ellens, Robert Lamoth, good to see you all. And Third Rock, nice to have you back. Jessica, good to see you. Miss Anonymous, thank you for coming on in. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Penny Van, nice to have you here. And here we go. More from our roll call. Richard Minnick, thank you for joining us. And Bigfoot Rob, always a pleasure to have you here, my man. Smithy, thank you so much for kicking off the Super Chat. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. And Tracy Hendricks, welcome to SOR Chat. Vash the Impaler, good to see you. Lee the Bee, thank you. Louie, thank you so much for that amazing Super Chat. Very much appreciate your continued support of SOR. Thank you so much. Colleen Boland, welcome to SOR Chat. Peppa H, Kathy Evans, and Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. Super Duke. Search and Destroy, Lily Pond. Nice to see you. Christine Lynn, welcome to SOR Chat. The Michael Leger, thank you for joining us, buddy. Jenny Miko, welcome to SOR Chat. Digger Dog, thank you for joining us. Daryl Zerline, Zora. And we're going to get the radio side going here because we have to, which means right about here, you're going to see Bill WD40 pop into the chat room and lube us up for tonight's show because you always want to go in smooth. Hello, gorgeous Kira. Leafs in 67. All right, free your mind. How are you? Pat Toohey, good to see you here. And who else do we have? I don't want to miss anybody, but we are running out of time. And let's see. There's a bunch of you people that I've already said. Timothman, how are you? Nancy Hayes, good to see you. Lightwalkers, welcome to SOR Chat. And who else? Digger Dog. Moving on down. Got you all. And Penman, Susie Alloway, welcome to SOR Chat. W. David Page, nice to see you. Sir Pent, nice to have you back. Sparkles over on Facebook, hello. There's Bill WD40 right there, and lubing us up as we speak. And we are caught up in the chat room so far. If you're new here, we do take commercial breaks every half an hour because we are a live radio show as well. So you will still be able to hear us during the radio breaks. Super Chat is open. Store is open on our website, spacedoutradio.com. I need a favor from all of you. Horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by CHIVE Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting CHIVE Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show for you tonight. We're going to be learning about UFOs from a political point of view from a great podcast that is called The Good Trouble Show. We have Matt Ford, their host tonight. Yeah, UFOs are pretty new to him, and we're going to get deep into this. It's going to be great. Then in hour number 3, we're going to head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller is here for another spooky story. And then, of course, Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio is here for the Cryptid Report as well. All right, let's hit it home right now. We got to get going. We got a busy show ahead of us. Matt Ford is an Emmy Award-winning Los Angeles-based political activist, influencer, and the host of The Good Trouble Show. He is the founder of the political action committee, Stand for Better, and has produced dozens of hard-hitting political ads for social media with over 20 million video views on Twitter alone. He has published op-eds on the UAP phenomena, in addition to the United States and Russian nuclear policy. But the cool part for us here at Spaced Out Radio is Matt is now going down the UFO rabbit hole. It started just over a year ago, and believe it or not, he actually blames me at SOR HQ for learning about this subject, and more importantly, the importance of getting this into discussion. Let's bring him in right now. Matt Ford, thank you so much for joining us on Spaced Out Radio for the first time, my friend. Good to have you here.
Dave, thank you so much. I'm super glad to be here. So I have to start off with the very first question. So as soon as you booked me, I've heard all of this talk about your legendary beard, which I have to say lives up, to all the hype. So this is about a week's worth. I don't grow very fast, but on like a scale of like 1 to 10, where am I? Like about a 3, do you think, on a Dave Scott scale?
I'm going to give you about a 9.5 out of 10 for
wow.
effort.
I'll come back on your show anytime.
Yeah. I mean, your hair looks immaculate, not over product like mine is in order to keep it, but you're looking dapper, my friend.
Why? Thank you.
I know our radio audience can't see you, but that's a nice shirt, jacket, and tie combination you got going on there. It's phenomenal.
I really appreciate that, Dave. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here. And, and like you said in the intro, you were the very first podcast, period, not even on the whole UAP issue. You were the very podcast, period, that I ever listened to. I was a little bit late to the game, but yeah. So it is kind of your fault.
I'll take blame. I will take blame, but I want to get into this right now and get our audience to know you, your audience, because I know you got a bunch of your listeners tuned in, listening to us probably for the first time. you started this UFO rabbit hole. You dipped your toe into the pool just over a year ago. Why did you decide to get into this subject and feel it was worth the news and the content?
Well, so the UAP subject, or really kind of any of cryptid, all that kind of stuff, that really was a interest of mine ever since I was 9 years old. So this would have put me in the late 70s when I first saw Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And it was funny, I was watching your intro there with the Bigfoot footage, and I vividly remember talking to my cousin about that. We saw it. I think it was on that. That documentary, or that documentary series with Leonard Nimoy. I'm blanking on the name of it, but
In Search of,
exactly. My cousin and I were huge fans of that. So it was an interest of mine from very, very early on, and kind of fell out of interest for most of my life. And kind of when I got back into it in the early 90s, I began studying U.S. and Russian nuclear policy, kind of as a weird sort of side interest. And I came across Robert Hastings' book, UFO and Nukes. And of course, having an interest in nuclear policy, and then kind of a lesser interest in the UFO topic, I picked that book up, and I don't remember exactly when it came out. I believe it was in the 2000s. I'm not real sure. It's a little bit fuzzy, but anyway, I was very, very interested in that. So I read that book again, kind of put it on the shelf. Sort of forgot about the UAP topic for a good bit. And what would that have been? In 2020 is when we began our political action committee and began producing political films for the left side of the aisle, advocating for that particular party. And I think that was around. So when did the first the ODNI report come out? First UAP, it was 2020, correct?
2021.
Okay, 2021. Okay, yeah. So fast forward to 2021. I hear about this report coming out. I'm like, I want to see what this is about. Started looking back into the UAP topic, and it was actually, no, rewinding towards the beginning of that year is when I started becoming interested in this thing again, and decided, you know what, I want to write an article about UAP and nukes. And I'd been looking into this for a short period of time, and was beginning to follow what Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Marco Rubio were doing. And one of the things that I became aware of was that the Air Force was not being cooperative with these efforts. And so I wrote this article for the debrief, and essentially my hypothesis for the article was the reason for the Air Force's sort of absence in the conversation was this history of UAP disabling our land-based strategic nuclear deterrent. That was really kind of when it all started. It was, of course, after listening to your podcast and really becoming interested in it. So I published that article. And I decided, you know what, this is I think a very important subject. Of course, yeah, I was interested in this as a kid, but really hadn't been following it. And the more I began to read about it, listen to your podcast and a few others, I realized that this was a very serious topic. And I certainly believed it to be real. I had never had any sort of UAP experience, paranormal experience, cryptid experience, anything of that nature. So I wrote this article, was published in the debrief, and I decided, you know what, I want to find out what the left side of the political spectrum, what that kind of interest, what interest there is in this particular topic. So at the time, I think we had around 50,000 Twitter followers, somewhere in that neighborhood, and I posted a Twitter poll, and I said, okay, who here would be interested in learning more about the UAP topic? And it was, if I remember right, it was kind of 60-40 with only 40% being interested in the topic. And I was really surprised about that. And I did some further research and realized that it is not a topic that trends well with Democrats at all. That it's primarily a subject of interest to Republicans. And I decided, you know what, I want to do something about that. And
I apologize for
sorry.
cutting you off there, but I wanted to stop you there because I think that's a real important topic. You know, UFOs, the one thing that I've learned, you'll rarely hear me use the term UAP, but UFOs is to me such a bipartisan topic. It's a worldly topic. It doesn't matter if you're communist like China, or if you're fascist, if you're Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, whatever it may be. Why do you think that the Democratic side of this doesn't really care to bring this subject up?
You know, it's a question I pondered, for quite a bit. I think that intrinsically Democrats or progressive liberals have a inherent trust in government. Maybe a little bit they don't have the same skepticism, I think, as conservatives have about government, at least here in the U.S. So I think that there's some of that. I also think, too, that there is I think that the UAP topic to many liberals feels more conspiracy-like, in terms of like the QAnon or being anti-science. And so I think liberals in many ways tend to be kind of very hard-headed or very narrow in their view about this topic, without realizing, of course, that as you said, Dave, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, or whether you live on the North Pole or South Pole or Russia or China or wherever. This is a topic that will affect all of us. So that's what started me on this journey. Was I want to message on this. It's important, and what really sent it down this path was, at the time I was going to write another op-ed, and through my political contacts, I asked to be put in touch with a certain senator's office that a lot of people here would know about. And next thing I know, I was connected with this senator's chief of staff. And I said, hey, I want to write an op-ed. Wasn't sure where it would end up, but I want to write an op-ed on the UFO subject. And next thing I know, the following day, I got an email back saying, okay, here's a Zoom link. And it was going to be with the senator's national security advisor, comms person, and another person who I wasn't sure who that person was. And so I hop on this Zoom call. There's no video. And when I walk into this call, I'm thinking that they're just going to ask me, okay, what are you going to write about? What do you want to know about the senator's standing? Blah, 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 blah. And that was all I was really prepared for. And I get onto this call, and the first thing they say is that this is all off the record. I'm like, okay. And that's no problem. And then the national security advisor goes, what do you want to know? And I was completely caught off guard by this, because I wasn't ready with a whole list of questions or anything. And so I said, yeah, so is this whole UAP thing real? Or excuse me, UFO thing real? And he said, yes. He said that these were observed on satellite, that it is a bipartisan national security concern, that, there were certain parts of the conversation I can't talk about. But, the one thing that really stuck out in my head was towards the end of the conversation, the national security advisor said, we may never understand where this is from. And I have to say that after that conversation, I was really kind of almost like in a state of shock, or I think it's one thing, like you hear it on TV, or you're like, yeah, all of this stuff is real. But when you hear it from a senator that sits on the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senate Intelligence Committee, and this senator's national security advisor says, this is real, it's not from here, and we don't know where it's from, what it wants, what its intentions are, that really that's when I realized that this was an important topic to message on, and I would do everything that I could with my audience to bring awareness to this subject.
Matt, you have brought a lot of different context to this subject from a political standpoint, and I admire that because you've gone digging. You've done what you're supposed to do, which is why play around with a lot of the people out there when you can go for the answers from those who are in the know. Does it surprise you with how little people in Washington, D.C. seem to know about this subject, or do you think a real game is being played here?
I think to a certain extent, senators or people in Congress, they're literally drinking out of a fire hose. They only have so much bandwidth. They're dealing with lots of issues, of course, what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. But I also think that there is certainly the stigma exists. Senator Gillibrand, Marco Rubio, Mark Warner, Congressman Gallego, there is a core group of people that are very aware of what is going on. They are very aware, I would say, of what has been obfuscated by the Air Force in terms of crash retrieval programs. I think things are really turning around. I know, for instance, I know that Ross Coulthard, the journalist who I have immense respect for, is seems very skeptical that the process of confirmation is kind of slowing down. But I honestly don't think so. I think that there is, especially in the political environment here in the United States, which is very, very polarized. This is the one issue that is something that brings these folks together. If you consider the fact that 33 pages of legislation was put forth by Congress that Joe Biden signed into law, that is enormous. Everything from whistleblower and reprisal protection to mandating that the AARO office, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, provide a report to Congress regarding any historical UAP programs or any programs run by the Central Intelligence Agency that were part of any sort of disinformation campaign. This is law. This is federal law. And if I think that this is a real turning point. And I think that there is, especially with what recently occurred with the balloons, which, of course, we were all kind of joking around a bit, but there is a serious awareness of this, and I think for sure things are turning around. But one note that I saw was Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee was apparently who I understand does not sit on House Intelligence Committee or any committee that would allow him that would grant him the clearance to see intelligence product. But from what I understand, Senator Marco Rubio is briefing him or has briefed him on stuff. So I really think that the tide is changing.
What do you think of the idea? We got about 5 minutes before we got to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. From the Good Trouble Show, Matt Ford is with us on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Speaking of Tim Burchett, I mean, whether you agree or disagree with his politics in this conversation is irrelevant. Let's focus on UFOs. He has been an absolute pit bull
100%.
in trying to get to the bottom of this subject. And, in a way, I wish, even the politicians up here in Canada, where I am, would do the exact same thing and act like that on every subject, not just UFOs. But Burchett has been very vocal about the hidden secrets, that we're not in a disclosure movement. We're not even close to disclosure. And I've always said over the last year and a half or so, I think we're in a confirmation, not a disclosure movement.
I agree.
Disclosure means tell us everything. Tell us Roswell. Tell us Eisenhower. Show us the Holloman Air Force Base video and many more. Okay. But we're not going to get that under national security. But it almost, to me, feels that Tim Burchett has been going down a path that there is almost this secret UFO guideline or group that is actually calling the shots on this. And that's the reason why the military has gone silent. The government looks silly when it comes to UAP, okay? And that there is, not to quote the Transformers, more than meets the eye
Right.
when it comes to this. What do you think he's trying to say but can't say?
So if you're a senator, and let's say that you sit on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and you're privy to certain intelligence product, ISR product, these guys, they can't talk about it because they have the same national security oath that they signed that they have to honor. So I think with these guys, it's a very fine line about what they can talk about. If you listen to Senator Marco Rubio and you listen to the front end of what he says, but then you listen to the very last sentence, that's what you want to listen to. They're writing a very fine line in what they can say. And I think that's part of what has been the issue with anyone that has been involved with this whole topic, or the secrecy of it, especially anyone involved in historical crash retrieval programs, things like that. They, messing around with a secrecy oath with the United States government is a no-S affair. We're talking prison time in Leavenworth, $10,000 fine, loss of security clearance, loss of your pension. And for folks leaving the military, that security clearance is what keeps them employed post-military. That is so important. So these guys aren't going to screw that up or risk losing everything for their family to talk about this if they do not have the legal protection to do so.
And that makes a lot of sense. And, we even got people around here who we talk to who have those same security oaths that they just can't break. And they're not about to try and break them. They don't want to, because family, it means more than jail time, like you said. And I think that's very smart. But there seems to be a real delicate part that Burchett is trying to expose,
yes,
to the best of his ability. And I don't think it includes Rubio. I don't think it includes Gillibrand. I'm wondering if somebody has told him, like, look, there is a college of people out there who are controlling what comes out about this subject. My good friend Random Guy, I'm wearing his shirt tonight, Random Guy. Okay. He has been with us, kind of teaching us over the last month or so about how this game is played. And the one thing that I've learned, is we got about a minute to go here, is that, to me, he disagrees, but to me, to quote Transformers again, and I'm so anti the dude who tries to quote movies, but in the first Transformers there was that Banachek from Sector 7.
Right.
Almost like there's this Sector 7 group out there that is controlling things. We got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, you know what? When we come back, I have some thoughts about Congressman Tim Burchett. It's purely a theory, but you know what? We may not agree on much policy-wise, but my hat is off to him. I would have him on my show anytime. I think he's a pit bull on this subject, and I have mad respect for him for fighting the fight.
Well, let's get into it when we come back, because we got a lot more UFO talk to come down the pipe here on Spaced Out Radio from the Good Trouble Show on YouTube. Yeah, we got a good friend here. Matt Ford is with us tonight, learning about UFOs. What is the best way to educate people about this subject, both on the topic and politically as well? We're going to have a lot of fun. Your questions in hour number 2 for Matt. Spaced Out Radio with Matt Ford and myself, Dave Scott, continues right after this. Stay tuned. All right, we are clear. Thank you, my flock, Louie and Smithy, for the super chats. Very much appreciate the love, guys. So much. Thank you so much for your support. Very kind. Very kind. That was a quick half hour, man.
I was. I was.
was
And
cool.
I must say that I noticed the very nice shout out by the lovely Nicole Sackich.
Yes.
She apparently appreciates my beard, and that means a lot.
Well, believe it or not, Nicole actually did her hair for this show.
Wow. Is she
Yeah.
going to be on later?
No, we can't see it, but you know, she just did her hair. I just wanted to say that to make her laugh.
Wow. I love that. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And if you're new here and you're one of Matt's followers coming on in, checking on out, welcome to Spaced Out Radio. We do things a little bit different here. We are a little bit of a hybrid type of YouTube show and podcast because we have to time everything out with our radio stations, which is why we have to take breaks at the bottom and top of the hour. But you guys get a behind the scenes look at what we talk about and what we kind of snark about during these times. So sit back, enjoy. We'll get going here in just a couple of minutes. And if you don't mind, if you're new here, give us a thumbs up. If you don't mind, it really helps with our algorithms as well as, or if you want a thumbs down, that's up to you. Leave a comment after the show. And if you could hit subscribe, ring the bell. We are here 7 days a week for your listening ears. Hi, Eddie Rodriguez and Big Tex Nicholas. I'm still really upset with you tonight. And hi, Thin Lizzie. How are you? Good to see you. Rugged Source, thank you for coming on in. And look at Thin Lizzie. Why are there two Daves on the screen? He's the better. He's the better. Look how handsome he is compared to rugged good Dave here. You know, Matt's going to come up to British Columbia here. We're going to teach him how to use a chainsaw.
I would probably cut off my arm if I did that. I don't think you want to trust me with a chainsaw. I can barely operate a battery-powered drill, so I think a chainsaw would definitely not be wise.
My friend, I'll tell you, when I moved up here, I had no idea how to cut down trees.
Wow.
No idea. And so my buddies had to show me the proper way. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time I went out and I found this tree. I'm going to hack it on up. And nice. It wasn't that big. It was only about this round and maybe stood about 50 feet high. And I cut it and it turned and started falling right towards me. I tell you, man, I got so freaked out on that one. But I got out of the way, thankfully. But I mean, you drop a big tree, man. I'll tell you, you sprout. Like I'm getting gray chest hair now because I'm almost 50. But the minute you cut down a big tree, your chest hair goes like dark black again, like real.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
I might have to check that out. There are not many trees to cut down in my neighborhood, so.
Mm-hmm. That's right, Joe. Canadian Chainsaws asked the log if they would like to be cut. Well, we're polite that way. We are polite. Hope you all are having a good night. Yeah.
I look forward to coming and visiting sometime.
Anytime, man. Doors
I
open.
love Canada. I love Canadians. So.
Well, according to your press secretary at the White House, I live in Canada.
Okay. I'll go there too.
Yeah. It's all good. Anytime. Anytime. Welsh Hammer, how are you? Good to see you. TMI, my man. Good to have you back. Oh, the new Husqvarna Rancher. That's a nice chainsaw, YJ. I got a steel. Or still, depending how you want to pronounce it. I've got like 5 blades sitting in my truck, all sharpened, ready to go.
Really? Wow.
Oh yeah.
How many trees do you cut down in a season, or do you...
I didn't cut down one this year because I had overabundance of firewood. But next year I'm going to have to cut down a couple.
Wow. Thin Lizzie, thank you for that comment. Why are there two? I didn't catch that till I looked down. Thin Lizzie Borden, great band. Thin Lizzie.
Yes. Yeah, Thin Lizzy's awesome as well. We got about 15 seconds here. Thank you so much if you tune on in and hit that subscribe button. Hey, Derek, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. And here we go in 5 seconds, everyone. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind you, if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. From the Good Trouble Show on YouTube and podcast, Matt Ford is our guest tonight. We're looking into the political side of UFOs and teaching the public about ufology and the severity of this topic. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get right to it because, right before the break, we were talking about the severity of the political scene and how it affects everybody. Your audience who you polled when you said only about 40% of them were interested in learning about the UFO topic, yet here you are, talking to people like Tim Burchett and other people in Washington, D.C., trying to get some motivation to get this subject more on the grassroots level than what it currently is. Why has that been an important topic for you for the Good Trouble Show? What sticks out about it that really drives your senses that the public needs to start taking this story seriously?
Well, firstly, I've never spoken with Tim Burchett, but Tim, if you're listening, come on anytime. I would love to have you. So my hat is off to you for all of your hard work. You are always welcome here. Really to be honest, what sent this down, really down this path is when I began to experience things myself. The first time anything happened to me was shortly after I had this conversation with the senator's office, and it was probably about a month or so later. But I was sitting outside, and this golden orb showed up about 200 feet away from the house. At first, I thought it was a helicopter landing light, and it faded out and kept coming towards the house. And it was with a quality of light unlike anything that I've ever seen. And that was my first time in my entire life to see anything like that. And again, as I spoke about earlier, it's when you hear something from a senator's national security advisor that this stuff is real, that was a shock. But then when I saw it with my own eyes, that's when you really internalize it. And since then, that's happened 4 times total, including some paranormal stuff that's occurred. So once I really knew this thing was the real deal and was a something that was important and was a reality, I decided, I got a message on this. And I remember the first time I did start messaging on it, I had a very prominent political activist on Twitter DM me and said, "Hey, are you really going to message on this stuff?" She thought I was crazy. And I said, "Yeah." And here's the thing is that this is a true reality. These aren't stories. This isn't people's imagination. This is occurring. It's occurring worldwide. Again, it doesn't matter what your political persuasion is. This is something that, for whatever reason, is accelerating in its appearance to people, I believe. Now, some people will say that's because we're paying attention to it more. Who knows? But I do believe in my gut that there is something going on. And I do believe that these sudden interest from our lawmakers in this subject, that's not without reason. One thing to keep in mind, we spoke about earlier the 33 pages worth of legislation that was written about UFOs. These things are not made in a vacuum. Lawmakers are not going to expend that kind of effort to put forth this kind of serious law. I know there are a couple of professional debunkers that say, "Oh, well, it's Senate staffers that are, gotten, wound up or influenced by the ufology crowd." That's a bunch of BS. These staffers are they know what these aren't people fresh out of college. Let me put it that way. And a lot of these folks have high security clearances as well. And they're not going to brief a senator or a congressman on something that's just a fantasy and convince their boss to write 33 pages of legislation.
The question that I have about that, and this comes to what I've seen through the whole Chinese drone aspect, and I'm curious to get your opinion. What I saw was a lot of people using the term unidentified object. Now, for a lot of people out there, that may not sound like anything, but when you're a journalist, when you are a seasoned reporter, not to pat my own back, it's the little things that trigger your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that from your time in the media and Hollywood as well. And the one thing that I seem to have learned through all of this in talking to people is I think there's a real difference between UAP and UFOs now. I think UAP are more modernized. They are more humanized. It's more human technology that Lou Elizondo was talking about when he released that statement regarding the shoot down of the 4 objects. And I'm curious, in your opinion, are you seeing a difference in the subject? Because there is a huge difference between something that's man-made and something that's extraterrestrial.
Yeah, I mean, my whole theory about the whole UAP, UFO thing, I mean, I certainly understand perhaps the reason was to combat the stigma, the tinfoil hat wearing, UFO, stereotype, the derogatory stereotype. But I also, I truly believe a lot of this is based on, and this is purely my opinion. It's purely my opinion, but I think it was a mechanism to try to minimize the legal exposure by whatever government entities have been covering this up, Air Force, whoever. I mean, you think about the number of lives that have been destroyed, the number of careers that have been destroyed, and lives that have literally, lives that have been lost over this particular subject. So what better way to legally sort of try and protect yourself as a government than to say, oh, this stuff is brand new. Let's since 2017, this UAP thing has been happening. I think society's attention span is so short, in my opinion, that I feel that it was framed in a way to kind of reset the conversation. So, of course, like you said, it could have been to try and erase the stigma. I tend to have a bit more of a pessimistic view that it was a way to minimize the damage that will ensue, especially legal damage, from when the cat is fully out of the bag.
And you know what? I think that's a good way to put it. When the cat is fully out of the bag, my concern is, I guess, with the entire topic is I don't think, in my opinion, society is ready for aliens. I really don't. Because, I mean, everybody right now is the way the world is going to all hell in a handbasket, from our own neighborhoods to the world population. Everybody's like, really, what now? What's next? What are we waiting for? And I always wonder about the question, why now? Because to me, the last six years don't make sense. They don't make sense at all.
Yeah. So I kind of have a bit of a long-winded answer for that. I do believe all of this stuff is happening for a reason. Again, I've only been really tracking this subject for a little bit over a year, and have been fortunate to meet with people that are involved with the disclosure effort, and other folks as well that are involved in this topic, and they're involved in it for the right reason, because they believe that this is humanity's right to know about this. This isn't any government. It's not any government's place to decide whether this is important to you or your family. Honesty, the truth always wins in this respect. I do think that, well, here, I'll tell you a bit of, when you were talking about how people are ready or maybe not ready for this. We certainly saw how people behaved with COVID, hoarding toilet paper, raw materials, things like that, and how people were treating each other, and the polarization that just was amplified by that whole pandemic. I think that is a very legitimate concern as far as how people are going to react to it. I mean, when I saw what I saw for the very first time, I'm a very open-minded person, but it scared the hell out of me. I never seen anything like that. And I knew right away it was not from here. So, you think about maybe public that is not as primed for this. I think that can be a dangerous thing. Now, one thing that I do strongly believe is that what will guarantee this not to go well is not to prime the public on this. If this gets sprung on the public, either by some mass viewing event or something like this, it's not going to go well for the public. And most importantly, it's not going to go well for the government, because they're going to have egg on their face. So the best way to handle this topic, as Tim Burchett has said time and time again, is transparency. Level with the American people, the world, excuse me, and level with them that we have retrieved off-world technology. I don't think that means you tell them everything. I think there are certain things that are legitimate national security secrets, but they have to level with the public. This can't continue. It's as Lou Elizondo so rightly explained this, it's like vegetables rotting in the refrigerator. It's not going to get any better.
I think that's a great analogy. I really do. And the one thing that I have learned about all these people who have the security clearance that I've talked to is you really have to learn how to read between the lines into what they are really saying. Like, they may say one line where the sky is blue, and then the next line they're saying there was part orange in that sky. But in reality, what they're telling you is there was a UFO that was causing that orange.
100%. Yeah, and I was going to touch on this earlier about Tim Burchett. One theory that I have about him, I don't know this to be a fact, but let's say you're Marco Rubio, you sit on the Senate Armed Services Committee. I believe he's on the Senate Intelligence Committee. I've had very high-placed sources tell me that he 100% knows everything that is going on, but he cannot talk about it due to a security oath. So, and the same thing I would say about Senator Gillibrand and Ruben Gallego and others. So if you can't talk about this in very straightforward terms, if I were a senator or I were a congressman and I knew Tim Burchett was really interested in this subject, I would pull him aside and say, look, this is what's going on, man. I can't say anything, but maybe you can without getting yourself tossed into jail. I don't know this for a fact, but judging by the aggressiveness and how he's been addressing this topic, my radar tells me 100% he is receiving information from folks that in Congress that know what is going on. And he is sort of the de facto mouthpiece because he doesn't sit on these committees and does not have the legal jeopardy to be able to speak his mind.
So do you think that a lot of what's coming out of Tim Burchett's mouth is maybe stuff that he has been tipped off to
I
by
do.
his closer allies?
100%. Yeah. Again, he and I are not going to agree on much, but we 100% agree on this. He is absolutely right that it is high time that the American public, or that the government level with the American public, and in turn the world, of course. He's not the type of guy that I see, and I don't know a whole lot about him, but I don't see him being the type of guy that's going to spout this kind of stuff off without having particular knowledge on this subject. And I do believe in the past, I think it was in one of his interviews with Ross Coulthart, that he stated that folks, military folks that have experienced these things firsthand, have briefed him personally. I know for sure that has happened with certain senators. And I do know, for instance, we were the first people to break the news that people involved with historical crash retrieval programs were testifying to Arrow in January. I don't know the exact number. I'm guessing it was about half a dozen folks, but I also know that those folks also testified in a skiff with certain senators about these programs. So it's like anything. You're not going to keep this thing under wraps if you're a member in Congress. I just don't see it happening.
You have built up a portfolio of talking with some very influential people within Washington, D.C., and you have broached this subject with them about UFOs. What is the concern from your sources about this topic? What are they stating to you?
The only thing that I've been told specifically was that it's a bipartisan national security concern. There were never any conversations about specific concerns. My past conversations have never involved any of the interference with our Minuteman weapons platforms, nuclear ICBM platforms. Now, I do know, for instance, and this was in the news recently, that Bob Salas, who we interviewed, and some other folks that experienced UFOs interfering with their weapon systems, testified to the Arrow office. It wasn't in person. I believe it was remotely, but they were under oath nonetheless. So that stuff is, if not every person in Congress is aware of it, I would imagine it's going to be really, really soon. And I still stand by this, by my hypothesis that by and large, the I can never say this word, obfuscation by the United States Air Force is primarily due to not wanting to admit that one leg of our nuclear triad has been tampered and interfered with for literally decades. They are the only ones that are not cooperating with Congress. And and you have the Air Force Office of Special Investigations that has run counterintelligence operations for decades on this subject. People in Congress know about it. Trust me.
5 minutes ago, before we got to go to break at the top of the hour, Matt Ford from the Good Trouble Show is here tonight. Matt, anybody who you have talked to within your circle of sources in Washington, have they had their own encounters?
I've been told of a few. I not firsthand by folks, but it has been contacts that have said this particular senator has experienced this, but I'm not at liberty to speak about that.
No, I understand. I can understand that. So the idea then that there is rather concern, are a lot of these people going down the threat narrative, that this is a threat to national security? And the reason why I bring that up is a couple of months ago up here in Canada, the Department of National Defense actually answered a number of members of Parliament regarding the UFO phenomena, saying in their estimation, there was zero threat narrative to Canadian airspaces when it came to unidentified aerial phenomena. Yet it is a very big counter difference of what we hear in the United States, because we also know that threat narratives equate to budgets that have a lot of zeros on them.
Well, number one, if UFOs are interfering with our strategic nuclear deterrent, there is no plainer example of a national security threat, in my view. The fact that these things are operating with impunity in our training ranges, that they are interested in our nuclear equities, that these things are being encountered on a near daily basis. You listen to people like Ryan Graves, former Navy F-18 Hornet driver, and what he encountered. I truly think it is a national security concern, for sure. I also believe too that the national security conversation is an excellent vehicle to get more lawmakers on board. If you were someone, say like Lou Elizondo, and I am not saying this is what he did or his motivation would be, but I think that really anyone trying to get this topic to be taken seriously, there is no better vehicle to do that than pointing out the national security implications. I don't believe that was the reason for doing it, but I do think that it was a good way of getting it into the conversation, because again, I do believe it is a national security issue. If these things, you don't know where they're from, what their intentions are, what their capabilities are, and they're flying around with impunity in your airspace, and your Air Force, your military can't do anything about it, that's a national security problem.
I understand that thinking. I completely do, and I'm not trying to shoot past that.
Yeah,
but we don't have any incidents.
We don't. I think. Well, I mean, I would say, the only thing that I can point to in terms of documented incidents would be incidents with the Minuteman weapons platforms. That is the only one that I can say. I would imagine that there are others, but we don't know, because that transparency does not exist. And again, I go back to the premise that this is, as Tim Burchett says, we need more transparency. We do, because those are legitimate questions to be asked. Are these truly a security threat? And my personal opinion, I think that it is something that needs to be examined. Do I know it for a fact? No, because they have not been honest with the American public. And the only way to gain clarity on that, and again, for people to decide for themselves what this means to them, what this means to their family, whether it makes a hill of beans a difference to them or not. People need to make that decision on their own. They can only do that with the government being as transparent as possible on this.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. Transparency is something that we are suffering from. And how do you have the conversation without giving information?
Exactly. And I think, so you have folks like Professor Avi Loeb with the Galileo project. And he said many times, it's like, let's not wait. And Dr. Gary Nolan has said this as well in so many words. Let's not wait for daddy to tell you this is real. Let's, with Avi Loeb and the Galileo project, they have the technology, they have the sensor suite to deploy to gather the data themselves. The sky is not classified. You can't go and take footage over a nuclear missile site, but the rest of it you can.
I'm going to get you to hold on right there. Matt Ford from the Good Trouble Show is our guest tonight. Grant, he has. I'm just so fumbled because he looks so good on camera. Great hair, nice shirt and tie combination, high quality facial stubble, and great points of view when it comes to UFOs. Hour 2 is next on Spaced Out Radio.
I'm looking at Michael's comment. Yeah, I do hope that is truly the reason. I mean, surely, yeah. I mean, I do hope that is the case, and that is the message. I know Robert Salas that is his opinion of why that has gone on.
Mine too. My friend, I'm going to take a quick break here, step away. I'm going to put you back in the green room.
Great.
And we got about 5.5 minutes, okay?
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
audience, we got stick around. We do have a lot more programming. We're just going to take a quick break here and step away. Be right back. All right, I am back. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
I'm very well, thank you. My wife is grabbing me a nice tea. Very nice of her.
Very nice. Very nice.
I'll, if you like, I can share the story from yesterday.
If you want, we can do that.
Or up to you. Totally, whatever you want to talk about. I'm up for anything.
I'm just game, man. This has just been fantastic.
Cool. I hope I'm not rambling too much. I can dial that back.
No. Before you get to that, I do have a question for you that
Sure.
I will ask, and kind of go from there.
Okay.
But we got about 45 seconds. Excuse me.
It's been fun. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, we're going to do this again, dude. We're going to do this again.
It's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. I think I enjoy conversing with you.
There's a lot of what you're saying that is just awesome, and people need to listen. People really do need to listen. I want to say a big thank you to Smithy, Louie, MyFlock, Deb, Red Panda, Nancy H, Jeff, and Obi Flat for the amazing super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. You can get your SOR swag on our website. Here we go with hour 2.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ainana. Ainana is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. The Good Trouble Show host, Matt Ford, is with us, teaching ufology to those who don't want to learn or are just not ready to learn about this subject. It is an in-depth conversation about a very bipartisan topic, and Matt comes from more of a political side of everything. And we highly suggest you go to his YouTube channel, The Good Trouble Show, and hit subscribe on that. Matt, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Thanks. I'm hoping by the end of our show, I will have my beard will be about as thick as yours. I feel like it's going that way. I hope that's the case.
Well, if you need, I'm just putting this out there. If you need, I do have some listener beards that have been sent to me over time. So if you need a beard, I have some beards here.
You have my word. Next time you have me on your show, I will have a thicker beard. With one of your fake beards or not, I promise I'll come more prepared.
I love it. I love it. I want to ask you, because we talked quite politically the last half hour about what's going on in DC and whether or not the politicians really know what's going on. But one of the things that I look at, because I kind of come from this from a different point of view, not only for many people out there who don't understand, I'm a journalist by trade, but I'm also an experiencer of this phenomena and have had very close encounters with not only UFOs, but with extraterrestrials as well. You may choose not to believe me. That's okay. You're allowed.
I do believe you.
But the question that I have is, we see a lot of these political groups and these scientific groups popping up, whether it's Galileo Project, Enigma Labs, or UAPX, or a number of these groups that are now out there, Ryan Graves' group. Everybody is talking about the nuts and bolts aspects of these. We need to learn their propulsion systems. We need to know, how they are flying. We need to know how they're getting into our airspace. But for the experiencers and the people out there who have had close encounters of the third, fourth, fifth kind, this is a completely different subject that is not even being tailored to yet. How do we combine the two if one group, the main vocal group, is not allowing the experiencer process to be involved?
I believe my feeling on that, and by the way, I 100% believe that you've experienced these things. I've there's far too much literature out there on the subject, starting with with the work of Dr. John Mack. I to really be skeptical of that. I mean, because really, if these craft are here, the natural question is, okay, what's driving them? What is in them? My feeling is, and this is purely my opinion, is that I think this kind of spoon feeding of the subject to the general public, I feel does probably have to go in stages. I think that once it, it's very, or somewhat easier conversation to talk about nuts and bolts or how this got from point A to point B. The next step is then going to be, okay, well, what is driving them? I think probably the very last thing that will ever be addressed will be the abduction phenomenon, which I believe is true. So I think it's just happening in stages, because the folks that don't really follow this stuff, I think it's a bit of a big learning curve to a certain extent. I mean, certainly media has, through movies and whatnot, has opened people's eyes to it. But I think in terms of the non-human intelligence aspect of it, that is something that people are going to be eased into it, for lack of a better way. And if I answered your question, let me know. Otherwise, I'll tell you a bit of the experience that happened last night, which
Continue
I think, yeah. So
I think ties into it.
Okay, yeah. So a friend of mine that is a political operative that is very well known in a particular party, who has helped facilitate relationships between myself and other folks. I reached out to this person over a year ago to make some meetings happen, and this person had never had any experience whatsoever in the UAP topic, none whatsoever. And of course, I'm explaining to her why I think that this is an important subject for Democrats, and something that lawmakers need to really wake up and pay attention to. And so I think we had spoken maybe about a month and a half ago. We don't speak very often. And this person has personal relationships with senators, presidents. This person's very well known in political circles. And I guess it was about probably about 9, so 6 p.m. my time, I get a text on my phone, and she's like, "Oh my God, I just saw one," and she sends a video. And what had happened was, this person was in Florida at their this person has a penthouse that overlooks the Gulf Coast, and this person was having a small dinner party with 4 other people, and it was around 9 o'clock at night, Eastern time, and they saw these lights off in the distance, and they all began taping them or filming it on their cell phone. Next thing they know, 2 large Tic Tacs that they described as larger than a Boeing 737 were hovering, 100 yards away from them. And the kind of, I mean, I think panic would probably be too strong of a word, but it was frightening. The 4 party goers ran out of the house or out of her place, and it was alarming because this person had never had anything like this happen. It was obvious it was nothing else. that would have been made by human hands. And going back earlier when I was saying that I believe that there's kind of a guiding hand, this particular person has the ears of a lot of folks in Washington. And to consider that this person had never had any experience like that and encountered it, sent me video, and is trying to recover video from the 4 other people that were at this small dinner get together. I mean, that's significant. And I can tell you that this person, and we chatted for a very long time. The second part of this conversation is that I immediately connected this person with someone that works in the government that is dealing with this topic. This person debriefed her, and as I sat and listened to the whole question and answer session, it sounded almost exactly what David Fravor encountered over the Atlantic. So now this person that I've been trying to explain the seriousness of this topic, this person now understands it. And this person is going to be at a dinner function with a United States senator. I think it's in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And this person is going to personally pull that senator aside and explain what occurred. One last point is that I do believe that these kind of connections are not coincidental. I do believe that it's not coincidental that it wasn't until I started messaging on this topic that things started showing up above my house where I've never seen it. There's too much going on, in my opinion, that is to be coincidental.
And how do you feel about that? All of a sudden you get into this topic and now you're starting to see things happen.
I mean, to be honest, it's been a bit anxiety producing. I do not wish to wake up to find anything in my bedroom. And of course I've heard through listening, to, I think, some of your guests on your show that these things do tend to accelerate. I am perfectly fine with banging on the walls in the house and seeing orbs of light above the house. I do not wish it to go any further than that. So it's, actually one thing I do remember you saying, one of the very first podcast episodes that I heard from you, Dave, is you saying you do not want this. And I am in agreement with that.
No, that's very true. And like most experiencers, nobody asked for this.
Right.
My situation has been rather tame compared to many people who are in our chat room on a nightly basis, or many people who are listening to this show and are too scared to talk about. One story I'd love to tell, if you don't mind. A number of years ago when I started this, I actually had a gentleman reach out to me. He had been listening for 4 months, and he was a very God-fearing man. He worked in maybe he still does, works as a corrections officer in a Midwest state in a maximum security prison. It's all murderers and really bad people there. And out of the blue, almost 7 days a week, he started getting activity of being taken. And he was getting taken almost every night for months. And this is a gentleman, once again, very God-fearing, and goes to church on Sundays and can't understand it, to the point where he was ready to commit suicide.
Oh, man.
And because I mean, to be a corrections officer, you have to be mentally and physically tough.
Of course.
You have no choice. And this was driving him nuts, to the point where, he was only sleeping. I mean, he would go to work for a 10-hour shift 4 days a week, and he's sleeping maybe an hour a night because he's so afraid of these little gray beings coming in to get him. And him and I talked about this, and he was so scared, like he was crying on the phone to me about, what do I do? And I will never forget that. I mean, these are the experiences that people are having. Now, not everybody has a negative encounter, and this is where it gets a little bit dicey. On what side do you believe? I mean, fear sells, fear creates budgets, fear creates a lot of storytelling. But there are people out there who say, hey, I had my knee issues and all of a sudden I can walk again, or I had cancer and now it's gone miraculously. I mean, there are a number of those type of stories out there, and it's hard to fathom that this phenomena is actually happening, and trying to figure out how it works and what truly is going on. That's the big mystery.
I totally agree. And one of the things that really surprised me was beginning to experience sort of poltergeist activity. And when I first started looking into the subject, I had no idea that there seemed to be some sort of co-location to it. Talking to my friend last night, and I was on the phone for probably 3 hours total. Excuse me. One thing that was said was, "Why me?" And I said, "Well, to be honest, it's probably because you've been speaking with me." And one thing I don't think I mentioned earlier, when I first wrote that article on a UFO, a UFO nuke Air Force connection, I had spent a considerable amount of time interviewing Robert Hastings, the author of UFOs and Nukes. And it was really kind of after that conversation, which sort of happened around the same time with the Senate call, that all of this started. And I've joked with friends, well, if you want to experience a phenomenon, talk to Robert Hastings on the phone for a while, and it'll end up, coming to you. I truly believe in the hitchhiker phenomenon. I've seen it firsthand. And again, I've never had a thing happen to me until over a year ago. And
you're so right. You're so right about it. And look, I think the biggest mistake that a lot of the nuts and bolts people make is the realization that it seems that everything here is connected, whether, like you said, poltergeist activity, paranormal activity, to UFOs and ET contact, to the cryptid world, to consciousness, to everything. It all seems to be connected. And what, Nicole Sasquatch and I, who is a friend of yours and a friend of mine, and a regular on this show, we like to call the phenomena. The phenomena is the umbrella term that just seems to make sense for everything that is going on. And, it doesn't matter where you go. It's always there. I mean, Matt, you come up and visit me, I can take you to my Bigfoot area where we actually had a Sasquatch sighting last October.
Wow.
But we found footprints there. We've seen UFO activity there. We've seen fairies flying through the trees. We've had one time when the minute we turned onto that logging road to go up to this area, everybody in my truck started getting freaked out. And when we got up there was something there. We don't know what it was. Okay. But we got something up there that wouldn't allow us to move from our vehicle. I kept my vehicle 30 minutes. And my buddy who was with us, because we always go into that area armed. Okay. Because not for the Sasquatch or anything else, but let's face it, a 1,500-pound moose or a 1,200-pound grizzly bear or a 500-pound cougar is not very friendly.
Right. Yeah. It's going to do some damage.
But in this area, he actually had a telepathic message to him that said, I wouldn't pull the gun out of the vehicle unless you want something bad to happen.
Wow. Well, there's stories from skinwalkers at the Pentagon of this happening to security, on ground security people, of walking into an area and this internal voice saying, you're not welcome here. If you had asked me 2 years ago about like whether I believed in Bigfoot or fairies or whatever, I would have said, well, I think the UFO stuff is probably real, but that other stuff is a bunch of bull. What I've experienced has completely changed my mind and made me realize that really anything is possible. And I think this phenomena, as you so rightly put it, manifests itself in many different ways that we just do not understand. It's a nature that we just don't understand yet.
No, and the problem is, how do you understand it? Where do you even start? even the most experienced experiencers have no clue where to start.
Right. I'm not real sure. I've asked myself that question as well. Like, why is poltergeist activity? Why does it co-locate with UAP activity? I have no idea. I mean, I certainly don't have any of the answers. I have no idea what this thing is, or what, the plethora of these things, whatever they may be. I don't know. That's a very difficult question. And I think also too, that I think so many folks are very, by nature, very binary thinkers, and at least the American public, in my view, and this has so many shades of gray to it. It's entirely possible much of the reason, or some of the reason, that they have not leveled with the American public is they can't explain what this thing is. And again, in that call with that Senate staffer, that was the one thing that stuck out of my mind, was him saying we may never understand what this is and where it's from. And that surprised me because, of course, I thought, it's ET. It's got to be, right? I had no idea about these other possibilities.
We have 3 minutes to go before we're going to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Matt Ford from the Good Trouble Show is here tonight talking UFOs. Matt, let's get back to the original topic here in regards to educating your listeners and the public about this subject. The media has a great role to play in this, and I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson. In fact, in my opinion, he's got one of those faces that I just want to, take to center right rink and
Right.
punch. And I say that with all due respect to the hard work that he does. Okay.
Right.
But the one thing I do admire him for is I think realistically, he is the only television personality that has not dropped this subject. I don't think he's asked a lot of the proper questions. I think he's let a lot of people off the hook, because in reality, he's not a journalist. He'll even tell you that, and I accept that from him. But the fact that the media plays a major role in this, and yet they're doing nothing about it.
And so one of the best interviews I've ever seen with Dr. Gary Nolan, who, by the way, will be on our show later this month. We're super excited to have him on. One of the best interviews I've ever seen Dr. Nolan do was with Tucker Carlson. Tucker asked very thoughtful questions. It was one of the most informative things. My big bone to pick is that the mainstream media is missing the boat on this. Conservative media, Fox News, they are the only ones, by and large, covering this. Now, you do have fantastic journalists such as Daniel Otis in your neck of the woods, Chris Sharp in the UK, Mark von Rennenkamp, and of course Leslie Keane, Ralph Blumenthal. But the mainstream media, in terms of televised mainstream media, they are asleep at the wheel, and they are doing a disservice to their viewers, and they're doing a disservice to humanity in general by burying their head in this. I cannot figure it out for the life of me.
Well, with 30 seconds to go here, I can say this from being former media: they don't know how to cover the subject. That's a big topic. And when you don't know how to cover the subject, what you normally do is you throw softballs.
Mm-hmm.
Because softballs get you in and out very quick, and then you go to your editing booth, get the piece done, and then you are out. And that's the big reason why. But I'm going to get you to respond, because we are going to continue this conversation when we return on Spaced Out Radio from the Good Trouble Show on YouTube. Highly recommend you hit subscribe. Matt Ford is our guest tonight, educating the public about UFOs. What is out there? What is going on? So far, it's been a fast-moving, fast-paced show. Next half hour will be as well. Then in hour 3, we got the Swamp Dweller and Super Duke coming in with the Cryptid Report. Lots of show left as we pass from the first half to the second half. Right after this, stay tuned. Thank you, Cat Chaser, for adding to the super chats. We love your continued support of Spaced Out Radio all the time. Thank you so, so much. Thank you to Obi and Jeff and Nancy H, Red Panda, Deb, My Flock, Louie, and Smithy as well. Oh, yeah. I did my entire, I got invited last year to the MUFON Symposium.
Oh, how was that?
It was good. It was good. Apparently, I'm not patting my own back here or anything, but I've had a number of people since then come up to me and say, thanks for being a breath of fresh air. And it wasn't the same old topics each from the same old people each and every time. So I guess I must have made some people think, which is always a good thing. But the media side of everything is very, very personal to me. You know, because I remember being in the newsroom when those UFO calls came in, and we would just laugh and hang up.
Yeah.
We'd make fun of the person until I actually called my old newsroom one day because we saw this giant white orb. Friends of mine and myself and we saw this giant white orb. We were sitting on my patio that had a southern exposure, and the mighty Fraser River was a couple miles below us, and we watched this giant orb, this white orb, rock through and then make an immediate pinpoint 90-degree turn to the south, made a 180-degree turn to head back north, went into the sky, and then just dropped into a lake.
You know, it's interesting. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I called my old newsroom. My buddy John answered, told him what happened, and I got how much you had to drink, Dave?
Right. Yeah, what are you smoking there? Smoking the wacky weed?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I honestly can't figure it out. Tucker's done a great job at covering this. The liberal media out here they gotta wake up. I have heard multiple rumors that 60 Minutes is working on another piece on the topic. The big piece of news that I think will blow the door open is historical crash retrieval programs. Once that comes out in a more verifiable way, and I believe that's probably what 60 Minutes is hunting, I think then it'll be impossible for them to ignore at that point.
The silly part about it is when 60 Minutes in 2017, 2018 interviewed Robert Bigelow, you could tell that they had no clue what he had just said.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
They had no clue when he was sitting there saying, you don't have to go into space. They're already here.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
It just
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And who was the interviewer? Not Laura Loomer.
I think it was Laura Logan, I believe.
Laura Logan, that's right.
Yeah.
I actually reached out to her to see if she would come on this show and talk about it. I never heard back from her.
Wow.
Unfortunately.
Wow.
But because the question that I had for her is how many follow-ups did you do, follow-up questions that maybe hit the editor's floor?
Right. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I do think there's probably a lot of that. But you do have, like I mentioned, Chris Sharp, a bunch of these other folks that are really doing covering this with the rigor that it needs to be covered. I'll speak a little bit more on that when we're back on air. Oh, but I was going to say real quick, yeah. So the first 3 orbs that ever showed up above my house were gold. Gold's maybe like the size of a small car. The one that showed up about 2 weeks ago was large and white, and that was the first time I'd ever seen one that size and of that color. It sounds like what you saw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, crazy them orbs.
Yeah, as long as they stay above my house and not come in, I'm good. So,
yeah, we had an orb. I'll quickly tell this. We had an orb sighting at our friend's house one afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
and it looked like a weather balloon.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I went home half an hour later, I
Mm-hmm.
rushed outside to see where this balloon was, or what I
Mm-hmm.
thought was a balloon.
Mm-hmm.
It stood stationary over top of my house for almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
So it was weird. Here we go. We got 3 seconds here. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Talking UFOs tonight. What a great night of radio it's been. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Until the top of the hour, we have a great guest tonight, one that you will want to listen to probably again. There's been an informative show. The Good Trouble Show host, Matt Ford, is with us. And yeah, if you watch on YouTube, he's got a great jacket, shirt, and tie combination going on. Looks, this guy's put together. I mean, he's ready for banquets, ready for
Thanks.
Matt, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
Right before the break, we were talking about the experiences that you're having. You've seen a few orbs, and you've noticed that since you've started delving into this topic, that all of a sudden activity is picking up around you, and
Right.
and now people that you are talking to. Do you think that the phenomena is about to open you up?
I think that I mean, obviously, this thing is eons more intelligent than we are as human beings, in my opinion. It's non-human intelligence, and I am certain it's quite aware of what we're talking about and what we're doing, and maybe they are playing a kind of 5D chess. I'm not sure, but I've seen too many coincidences in people that I've met, people I've been introduced to, people that I've developed relationships with, for it to just be a pure coincidence. We were speaking earlier about what happened to my friend last night, and I truly think that happened for a reason, and it's just the not the aggressiveness of the encounter. I don't think it was an aggressive thing, but the blatant showing of what these things were close up was meant to, in my estimation, to cause some kind of reaction. And again, this person is very connected in DC. So if you're a non-human intelligence and you're wanting to bring about some kind of change or confirmation or disclosure, whatever you want to whatever you want to call it, you would certainly try to influence those people in those circles and leaders in government.
What do you think the fear is about this? Is it aliens? Is it that this subject is very unknown? Where do you see the fear?
I think for the most part, we have sort of instilled in us that we are the apex species, that we are the top of the food chain. We're the smartest thing, since sliced bread, or whatever analogy you want to use. And I think it has the potential to really rattle people, to be told that we're perhaps the middle of the food chain, and that whatever this is, this non-human intelligence that's interacting with us, that we don't have any control over it. We don't have any power over it, as far as I know. that's a big pill to swallow. And that's one reason why I think the abduction phenomenon will be probably the very last part of any sort of conversation, because in my view, that if that is occurring, which I do believe it is, I mean, that is the highest violation of human rights that I could possibly think of. So there's just a lot for people to swallow, the general public, that there's something here. We don't have control over it. Can't do anything about it. It's not going away. And oh, by the way, this is just what it is. It's a lot to swallow.
Being new to the UFO world, do you think the UFO family does itself any disservice by the way people watch what they say and do on places like Twitter or Reddit or other social media aspects, whether it's the people who are putting out fake CGI videos, whether it's the people who are having public disagreements on social media or trying to dox people, because this is what we're the fringe. But
Right.
The public who is looking into this, who maybe wants to learn more, heads over to UFO Twitter or heads on to Reddit and sees, or YouTube, and sees a lot of this arguing and fighting. Yes, it happens in everything from sports to knitting and crocheting. Okay, but
Mhm.
has the aspect of the way UFO Twitter has acted many a time affected the severity of this topic?
That's a really great point. I mean, UFO Twitter is certainly a S show. I won't say the four-letter word, by and large. Excuse me, and this is where I have a problem with some of the professional debunkers who are just there to stir the pot and that kind of thing. And as you mentioned, there is always this kind of drama and sort of anything like this. However, what I would say is that people, like, for instance, so our combined following on Twitter on the Good Trouble Show and Stand for Better is over 86,000 followers. And they're all very politically active by and large. Are they going to UFO Twitter? Probably not. They're probably just watching what content I'm putting out. I think that if you are new to the subject, I'm not convinced that you would start looking into UFO. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not real sure, but it does itself a disservice to have that. But I would say, by and large, the majority of the folks there have good intentions. You only have two in particular, maybe a few more that I can think of, that are really there to try and upset the apple cart just out of spite or perhaps being on somebody's payroll.
Well, there are rumors that many people within the UFO Twitter community are actually implanted spies, spooks from alphabet agencies,
Sure.
and or paid agents.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Touching back on what you were talking about with the media being asleep at the wheel. You also have people in the media, namely Julian Barnes of the New York Times, Holman Jenkins of the Wall Street Journal, that clearly have an agenda, in my opinion, of trying to sway public opinion. Particularly Barnes of the New York Times has time and time again done everything to poison the well before any sort of UAP legislation or reports come about. And you see Barnes and Jenkins spit out almost identical talking points that would come from the DOD trying to debunk this whole topic. And if you want to convince a senator or a congressman to stop backing something or asking for funding for a program, for instance, there's a increased funding request for Arrow. What better way than to talk to your national security correspondent contact at the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal and whisper into their ear, hey, this is what we would like you to say. We're going to give you some other goodies about, what you want to know about Russia or whatever, but we want you to put these talking points out. I firmly believe that is what is going on.
Let's get to a question from Red Panda here. And he says, Mr. Ford, can you share any behind the scenes Capitol Hill UFO stuff? And what are your predictions for the year, given this political knowledge?
Really kind of everything that I sort of know up to this point that I can share, I have shared. It's really kind of anyone's guess. My gut is that this is going to continue to snowball. There's no way of putting the toothpaste back in the tube. And I do believe Senators Gillibrand, Rubio, and others are well aware of the I can never say it, obfuscation and the illegal programs that have been run by, and probably in particular, the United States Air Force. They're not going to let this go.
I think that's a great answer. There are a lot of people within the intelligence and black ops community, whether they've worked at special bases north of Las Vegas or in Utah or New Mexico or other places, who claim that there is no aliens. Not saying that they don't exist or aren't visiting, but truly in belief that there really isn't anything being covered up by the United States government, and that is coming from insider information from the people who have boots on the ground, comparatively to what we are hearing from experiencers and those in government who have gone as far as saying we have crash retrievals, and scientists who are saying that as well, government scientists. Where do we stand on this highly anticipated debate on whether or not this is actually happening, or if it's just one giant cover-up?
I've talked to too many people that would know about this stuff, not directly related to crash retrieval programs, but people that would be aware of it simply because these are folks behind the scenes in Washington covering this particular topic. It's my understanding is that it is so heavily compartmentalized, so stovepiped as been put, and that it's spread out. That I think it's probably just going to be difficult to track. The other thing too is that, let's say that Arrow does find out, we've had this legacy crash retrieval program and it continues to this day. Whether they're going to tell the American public about that, that's a really big if.
It is a big if, but it's a question that still needs to be asked in regards to it, because this is such a controversial type topic. Now, coming from more of a Democratic side, we know that from Luis Elizondo and other people who have come out and stated that there's a big 50-50 draw in this line drawn in the sand regarding those who are very much wanting to learn more about this subject, whether it's extraterrestrial or not, and then the group out there who still, religiously speaking, believes that this is something demonic. It could lead to Armageddon and the destruction of the planet when demons coming down from the sky. That seems to be the great debate from what I'm hearing by a number of politicians. Are you hearing that as well?
The same. Yeah, 100%. The United States Air Force in particular, that's a very, especially U.S. Air Force Academy graduates, and maybe not so much today, but in the past, the religious aspect is a very important part of their upbringing in the Air Force. So I would imagine that has something to do with it. But really, at the end of the day, what I've been told, and this is kind of secondhand. It's not like I know someone that's involved in a crash retrieval program. They told me that, but by and large, the consensus that I seem to be hearing is it's about power and money. and which is why all of this got squirreled away in private aerospace to avoid congressional oversight. You know, if you're Northrop Grumman, and let's say you happen to have non-human technology, and you sell 50 B-2 bombers a year, and at $500 million a piece or whatever that is, and you possess this alien technology, are you going to put it out there and all of a sudden you're only selling five stealth bombers versus the 50? If probably from a business perspective, you're going to keep that black money coming in. You're going to keep that money coming in to buy your bombers. It's money makes the world go around, unfortunately, in that area.
Where do we see this topic going in 2023? I mean, we're still young in the year.
Sure.
Okay. I don't see a lot of information coming out. I see it, continuing to dribble like a leaky tap. Your thoughts?
I don't know. I've been kind of trying to figure that out as well. I mean, obviously it's looking into some kind of crystal ball. The things I'm hearing is that this stuff is ramping up, the encounters with military, things like that, and just kind of the the coincidences that I think are not coincidental seem to, in my view, be ramping up. I really don't know. I think we've already made a huge amount of headway just in what we've seen already. I mean, already the public awareness of with what happened with the balloons, and I believe probably the other three items were prosaic, and that's something that I've heard from my sources as well, that it's nothing crazy. But my hope is that it brings up awareness. I think it will take another 60 minutes segment, something big to jump it, or as I think I mentioned off air, I think the thing that will really blow this thing open is crash retrieval programs, because if the government has a crash retrieval program, they have it for a reason. They're not just having it, for the heck of it. There is a reason that they have that. There's a reason they are funding it. And there is a reason Congress wrote 33 pages of legislation on UFOs that is now law. There are reasons for these.
And the politicians you have talked to regarding this, do they want more information out, or are they part of the holdback because they feel maybe the American and world public is not ready for the intel that they have?
I'm not real sure. I haven't had direct conversations on that. I'm sure my guess would be that it's a mixed bag. There are people that are interested in it. There are people that are not. I think I think it just runs a gamut. I'm really not sure. I don't have any direct visibility into that.
What would set off this story? Do you think we need another Phoenix Lights type encounter?
I do think that some kind of mass viewing event, because here's the thing, I could go out, outside my house right now and film one of these orbs that I've seen and put it on air, and 99% of the people wouldn't believe it. Joe Biden could go hop in front of the podium in the press room at the White House and say, hey, this non-human intelligence is interacting with us, and probably 75, 80% of the population, or some variation of that, would not believe him. I think that it will take some kind of mass viewing event like the Phoenix Lights, but perhaps bigger, on a very large scale, for people to go, wow, this is a real deal.
Definitely a real deal. As we got about 5 minutes to go here, what do you want your audience and the people who are paying attention to your show to know about this topic? What is important for you to transcribe to them?
So the thing that is important is that this is a reality. This is here. It's been interacting with us, and the government needs to come clean. I'm not saying spill all the beans that would certain things, that would jeopardize national security. I will say the folks that I've spoken to that are aware of these historical crash retrieval programs, without exception, what I've been told is that the general feeling is that the American public needs to be told there are certain things that they cannot be told regarding national security things, but in general, there's no reason for this not to come out. So, and then my main message to all listeners, whether you're Republican, Democrat, purple, blue, or whatever, is to contact your legislator, call their office, send them an email, and tell them that this is an important topic and that it's time for them to come clean with the public.
It is time, but can politicians really afford that in today's day and age, to be leaders rather than just sheep who are following the doctrine?
I think that they can. I think you have folks like Kirsten Gillibrand, Marco Rubio, Tim Burchett, that are standing up and doing the right thing. And you, of course, have people like Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, all of these folks that have really put their butts on the line and stuck their necks out and sacrificed quite a bit to get this important topic out from the shadows and away from the stigma. I have great faith in fellow man that there are people that will stand up and do the right thing. Maybe not in the United States Air Force, but in the other areas, I do think that.
Important question for you. Is this, we know this is a global problem,
Right.
Trying to figure out what this is. Okay. But all the focus seems to be on the United States of America when it comes to this subject. Is that viable? Is that the way it should be?
I don't think it should be. I mean, this is a worldwide issue. No one government, in my opinion, should own the narrative on this. This is about us as the human species. I am guessing, this part of, I'm not a UFO historian at all. I don't consider myself a ufologist or anything like that. I know very little about that aspect of it. But in my personal estimation is that these other governments are waiting to see what the United States is going to do. Look, if what I've been told is other countries have had retrieved crashes, it certainly seems that the United States has been the one that has sort of carried the load on that and carried the narrative. But all world governments, it's time to level with people. People, you got to pull the Band-Aid off.
Well, many might say that Western civilization is ready for that, but there are certain civilizations on this planet that may not be ready for that due to religious beliefs or
Sure.
any sort of totalitarian government.
Those are very legitimate points. Those are very legitimate questions. But again, I go back to my belief that the truth always wins. And we've seen the amount of damage that the obfuscation and the illegal things that this democracy shouldn't be doing has been doing. And and I think that's a bit of a wake-up call, especially people like myself that are Democrats, to wake up and go, the government has been doing some really terrible things in many areas, but this is certainly one. And it's time to rip off the Band-Aid, level with the American people. That, I think, will snowball across the world. I think the United States, it's time to take a lead on this and do the right thing.
Matt Ford from the Good Trouble Show on YouTube, thank you so much for
Thank you for having us.
not only being a fan of this show, but for being just an amazing guest tonight. And thank you for hitting a home run with us tonight.
It's been fun. I'll have a bigger beard next time I see you, I promise.
Well, we're going to do it again very, very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Matt Ford from the Good Trouble Show on YouTube. Coming up next, we're going to head to the swamp. Then we are going to have Super Duke for World Bigfoot Radio come in for the Cryptid Report. Spaced Out Radio continues with Hour 3 next. Great show, buddy.
Cool,
Great
man.
show.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. I enjoyed that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I would, happy to come on anytime.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thank
Cool,
you, my
man.
friend.
Thank
you. Thank you. We'll talk very soon here.
Sounds good, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. That's Matt Ford. I hope you enjoyed that. I totally did. Hey, Super Quest, how you doing? I'll be right back, guys. We're going to take a quick break here and go from there. All right. Thank you all for tuning that in. What a great show it's been so far with Matt Ford. And we thank Matt so much for coming on. I mean, just a nice, fresh breath of knowledge there, don't you think? And a big thank you to Smithy, Louie, MyFlock, Deb, Red Panda, Nancy H, Jeff, Obi, Flet, Cat Chaser, and Andrew for the amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciate it. Reminder, just a couple weeks away, I will be in San Francisco for UFOCon 2023. Go to UFOCon2023.com to get your tickets, as we'll be hanging out at the UFO show that Lorian Fenton is putting on. They got a great bunch of speakers coming on in, so I suggest you get tickets for that. And if you're planning to come to Vegas, time to get your tickets. Go to info@spacedoutradio.com. Tickets are $60 or $100 per person if you want a VIP package. We'd love to see you all there. I know we've got about 60 or 70 planning on coming right now, and we're going to be working on that here this weekend. So we want to see you all there. We want to see as many of you as possible. We're going to have a great show. Matt Ford he said to me before the show that he wants to try and attend as well. So let's try and get there, and let's see you all there. Here we go with hour number 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Yanana is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time once again for us to head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on another spooky journey.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. It would be a fun and exciting experience to go camping in the Bolivian wilderness with my friends, I thought. So we packed our bags and embarked on our journey, excited to explore the vast expanse of unspoiled nature. The first few days were actually quite amazing. We hiked through the dense jungle, crossed raging rivers, and climbed towering peaks. We even caught glimpses of exotic wildlife like jaguars and tapirs. But things quickly started to take a turn for the absolute worst. One night, while sitting around the campfire, we heard strange noises from the forest. At first, we thought it was just some animal, but the sounds became more and more human-like. We were all on edge, but we decided to ignore it and tried just to go to sleep. The following day, we woke up to find that some of our supplies were missing. We assumed it was just some animal that had taken them, but we were all so wrong. As we continued our journey, we saw signs of human activity. We found footprints, broken twigs, and even discarded clothing. We tried to rationalize it by telling ourselves that some local tribespeople were curious about us, but we couldn't shake the feeling that something was just not quite right. As we continued to hike, the feeling of being watched grew more robust. Then finally we started to see figures lurking in the shadows, and they would disappear every time we turned around. We were absolutely terrified at this point, but we didn't want to give up on our adventure. That was until an unknown tribe confronted us. Now, I had done quite a bit of research and had not heard anything about a specific tribe being uncontacted in this area, but I had read that it was possible that they could exist. They were a fierce-looking group dressed in rough animal skins and carrying crude weapons. They didn't speak our language and we couldn't understand theirs. They made it clear that they didn't want us there and we knew we had to leave before things worsened. But before we could go, they attacked us. We had to fight back, but they outnumbered us by far and had the advantage of knowing the terrain. Finally, we were forced to flee, abandoning our supplies and running for our lives. We were lost and alone in the wilderness with no way to communicate with the outside world. Days passed and we ran out of food and water. We were exhausted and on the verge of giving up, but we refused to let these unknown tribespeople defeat us. We finally managed to find our way back to civilization, but the memories of that terrifying trip have stayed with us for years. I still have scars from the cuts and bruises that I gained from all the plants and falling while trying to run. We avoided many traps and all kinds of crazy contraptions that they had put out there in the woods for what I assume is protection and potentially hunting. Now, whenever I hear strange noises in the forest, I remember that camping trip and shudder at the thought of what could have happened to us. I know that the story was short, but I had to share it. It's one of those things that just haunts me every single night of my life, and it would be nice to have some sort of therapeutic escape.
And that's why we love the Swamp Dweller coming on in, putting us on edge each and every third hour to kick things off Monday through Friday night. If you want more stories just like that, head on over to youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads. He's got thousands of stories just like that for free. From the swamp to the forested hills of Montana, it's time for Super Duke and the Cryptid Report. Super Duke, the Cryptid Report with Super Duke. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. It's always a pleasure to have you here, my man. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, and I don't go on any hikes in Bolivia so that I can get run off by savage natives and lost for weeks at a time. This is why you don't go on hikes in Bolivia. Good cautionary tale there.
Very true. Very, very true. You know, Swampy gets it right sometimes. You know, there's just, I think a lot of these problems that we have with a lot of these creatures, man, is we're just stupid. We're just stupid. We put ourselves in predicaments that we don't need to be putting ourselves in, and we just get in a whole heap of trouble, my man.
Even as tactless as I am, I still haven't put it so succinctly and bluntly in the past as you just did, Dave. Yes, absolutely. That's 90% of the problem. We are just stupid and can't take a hint. Hey, something's throwing rocks at me. No, something's shaking trees and roaring. Let's go see what it is.
Exactly, my man.
Derp.
That's exactly it. We got to stop that crap. We need to stop it.
Jeez. Be responsible, people. See, this is why Bigfoot throws rocks at us, because we're not responsible and we do stupid things.
You got that right. You got that so right. My man, there's been a lot going on here recently regarding, sightings and the winter keeps falling. The snow is holding many of us up from getting back into our investigative areas. But this is why you're a breath of fresh air to come on in here and share some major stories with us.
Well, even if we're missing out on being able to get our own selves out there, I'm plotting and planning for summer, and I got a new roommate that's moving in here now, and he's seen a Bigfoot before, and he's 100% native blood, local Flathead tribe, and he wants to go out and see Bigfoot again. So, I instantly have another member on my research team. That works out nice for me. So, yep, and getting the vehicle all set up and everything so that I can not have to set up tent anymore. I can drive my tent up there and be inside of it. It's kind of going to be different not having thin layer of fabric between me and 10-foot Bigfoot. Might feel somewhat safer. No, I'm not going to fool myself. I'm not any damn safer.
I hear you. Are you hearing a lot of reports to kick off the year?
Well, down in the south this time of the year is when they're actually out looking for things, because in the heat of the summer, it's too damn hot. And there's so many bugs making noise and stuff, you can't hear anything. So actually, a lot of the senior researchers like to get out at exactly this time of the year, before there's a whole lot of brush that's growing all its leaves back again and stuff. More open field of view, not as many bugs making noise in the background. And then as you go more into spring, which they're just about to go into right now, then the local.
Well, you froze up
So
on
that's
us.
also a good time to, accidentally catch them.
You froze up on us there for about 5 seconds, if that.
Well, sorry about that. I said what I was saying is spring that they're going into right now is a good time to go out and look for them too, because they tend to be moving around in the spring and fall. So this is a good time of the year for them to be out there just to get random observations for areas that they're prone to be moving through. And I got several friends that are down there. Actually, one of them just flew down from Alaska to go hang out with William Lunsford, the Fylth monster hunter, for a couple of weeks, and go looking around for stuff off and on with him. And yeah, they'll be on the show with more updates. More things happen. Daniel got chased up a tree by wild boony pigs too, so that wasn't a good thing.
Well, when you put yourself in stupid positions,
stupid things happen. Yeah. And I asked him, what'd you learn from that? And he goes, stay with the guy that has the gun.
Right? That's all you can do. That's all you can do is just stay with the guy who has the gun and just hope that he doesn't shoot you in the leg first so he could get away.
No, he's got big boomstick. He can blow away little piggies, no problem. So as long as Daniel stays anywhere near him, he's good. And it seems for the most part that William's on pretty good terms with the Bigfoot down there too. They don't seem to mess with him very much. They like playing you try and trick and get us on camera and we'll get away with it and steal your Snickers bar game.
Oh, it's always about the Snickers bar.
It's all about the Snickers bars and how many they can get away with.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
It's like literally turned into a game with him. He's got one series of pictures where he had one camera sitting on next to this little log pile. And right in front of that, there's a Snickers bar. And there's another camera beyond it that's camouflaged. There's a third one over on the side. Well, the third one on the side got deactivated. The one right next to the log pile had a piece of bark placed over the lens, so it couldn't see anything. And the concealed one in front, he was trying to duck down low enough to get his arm up and grab that Snicker bar so it couldn't see him, but it actually got him from here up, and you can see his arm and his hand coming around grabbing the Snicker bar.
Reminds me of a story a friend of mine told where his brother was working on one of the power lines over in the BC Sunshine Coast. And he was looking out his back mirror because he saw something move, and everything just seemed really, really dark all of a sudden. And this is the middle of the day. He's eating his sandwich. He's got his lunch out. And then all of a sudden he looks out his side mirror trying to figure out, well, what was that? And now his side mirror, his driver's mirror, is dark. And all of a sudden he sees this giant hand reach in his open window, grab the sandwich from his hand, and watches this Sasquatch walk off down the logging road eating his sandwich.
That is really brazen.
Oh,
I believe it, though. They do stuff like that. That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't imagine all of a sudden seeing this 12-inch hand reach in through the window, grab my peanut butter and jelly sandwich and take off.
And walk off happily munching. That's like that story I told on here before where that guy was out hunting, and at the end of the day, he was down south, and it was, nice evening, wasn't going to rain or anything. So he just threw his bedroll in the back of his truck and curled up in there and went to sleep. And about 2:00 in the morning, something grabbed him in the sleeping bag and yanked him right out the back of the truck. And then he saw this huge figure looming over him. He realized there was some kind of thing. It just grabbed him and pulled him out, literally out of the truck bed onto the ground. Whap. Now he's awake. And there's this huge thing leaning down over him. And he's trying to grab anything around him he can to stop the huge thing from, anything between him and the huge thing. And the only thing that he can grab is this bag of chicken that was in his bedroll. So as it's coming closer, he crams that in its mouth, whereupon it goes, smells it, bites down on the bag, backs up, walks away happily munching on the bag of chicken as it wanders away. That's all it wanted was the bag of chicken. It could smell the bag of chicken. Where's the bag of chicken? He shoves it in its face.
Oh,
Oh,
kidding.
I'm happy. I'm done.
My gosh. My gosh. What kind of stories you got for us tonight, my friend?
Oh, we got a bunch of them. We got some reports from our good friend Captain Kenny over at the group investigating mystery primates. And that he's been getting some good ones coming in. And then after that, we've got a couple of more military encounters, this time from BFRO sources. So we can hope that those ones haven't been tinkered with a whole lot. But here's some short ones from our friend Captain Kenny. Get down here to the bottom when they start. Chilly November night in 1974, and the witness was driving through rural Kansas to bring her husband the awards he had forgotten. As she drove down the back road, she suddenly saw movement to her right side and slowed down, thinking it was a deer. However, what she saw was not a deer, but a large hairy creature walking in an upright position towards the fence. The creature was about 7 feet tall, with hair covering its entire body, and its eyes appeared to be red and glowing. The witness felt a sense of dangerous situation and opened her door to get a better look. The witness,
Duke, you seem to be freezing up on Duke, you seem to be freezing up on us a little bit here with your signal. I'm not sure what's going on with you here.
We're having solar storms, Dave. Nothing I can do on this end.
Okay, well let's try and push it through here. Maybe turn your camera off just to save some bandwidth.
Okay. Okie dokie. Hopefully the audio will hold.
There you go. You're sounding great.
Okay, where are we at? Yeah, I'm on the Ethernet cable too, so it has nothing to do with this. It's a nice solar storm we're getting right now. So anyway, they looked at each other curiously for a minute, crossed the road, disappeared into the trees. The witness was left with an impression of the creature's heavily built upper body, its long arms, and its dark chestnut brown hair. She also remembered the musky wild odor of softly glowing red eyes. Despite the late hour and her preschool son's asleep in the back seat, the witness remained calm and collected. She sat in her car for a few minutes before continuing on her journey and never saw the creature again. But the memory of that encounter stayed with her, and she often told her story to anyone who would listen. And even now, decades later, the memory of that encounter still lingers, and the mystery of the Bigfoot in Kansas remains unsolved. And here's the next report. July 1998, a mother and daughter were driving home from the mall in Toms River, New Jersey. As they approached the exit of the Garden State Parkway, they saw a man-like creature standing alongside the guardrail. It was approximately 7 feet tall and covered with hair from head to toe, with the exception of its eyes, cheeks, and mouth. The creature turned its head and looked directly at the witnesses before crossing the guardrail and disappearing into the darkness of the nearby woods. The next morning, they returned to the area to find any evidence, but all they saw were briars and thorn bushes that seemed completely impenetrable. To this day, the witness still slowed down every time she drives by that exit and looks for any sign of the mysterious creature still being around there. And here's another one. December 2002. A hunter in Franklin County, Alabama, observed a creature on two legs, roughly 100 feet of position in Pine Thicket. He described it as being a little over 7 feet tall, powerfully built, happening very fast and hard as it was trying to catch some deer, but it never looked at the hunter or seemed to even know he was there. The hunter also reported that he had heard similar strange noises in July 2006, and that other people had also reported spotting a strange creature around farms, in woods, while hunting, and around the lakes in the area. And we have one more here. In April 2004, a group of people, including the witness and their family, were driving on a 4-lane highway in Emmanuel County, Georgia, near the town of Swainsboro. They saw a large black bipedal creature crossing the highway in 2 strides. Other cars, including a semi-truck, had to brake suddenly. The witness's wife and parents also saw the creature, which was described as taller than an average person, with a long stride and fast fluid movements. A BFRO investigator interviewed the witness and found them credible, and concluded that the creature was not human due to its size, speed, and dangerous behavior of crossing a busy highway. Yeah, that's a good logical conclusion there. That's kind of not a good idea. Good note there. So there's the short reports, and
we got about 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Let's see, which one have we got? Might be able to get through this one in 3 minutes. This is in Chatham County, Georgia, 1st through 3rd January. Little Tybee Island lies across the Tybee Black River and slightly southwest. It's an uninhabited and wild barrier island. It has never been a place where humans live. People visit it, but usually only in summer. He says, I think it was 2nd or 3rd January 1976. I was active duty and stationed at Hunter Army Airfield. One of my Army buddies and our wives went out to Little Tybee Island on a camping hunting trip. We had a nicely sheltered tent inland about 200 yards of the beach behind the dunes. The first night out was cold. It got into the high teens. The local forecast predicted record lows the next day and night. Our wives were cold and wanted to go home. We transported them back to Tybee, but we went back out on an afternoon hunt. By 1600 hours, it was too cold to stay out. Our lab was coming out of the water with ice coating her. We returned to camp and had a warm fire going, ate an early supper, and retired early. It was too cold to sit up. Approximately 2200 hours, I awakened to our lab growling softly. Jim was awake too. He asked me, Robbie, is your gun loaded? I assured him it was. We then heard a 2-legged creature walking toward our tent from the rear. I say a 2-legged creature because men walk differently from deer and other quadrupeds. At that time, there were no deer or hogs on Little Tybee, although now there are. The creature stopped approximately 30 to 40 feet from our tent, and our tent was in a small valley that wouldn't be visible to someone coming from our tent, from the backside of the island until they were almost upon it. There was a minute or two of complete silence. Even my lab was extremely quiet. She acted scared for the first time I had ever seen. There was then a whooshing sound of something large whirling through the air. It struck our tent with a tremendous whomp. The dog went nuts. We both jumped out of the tent with our 6-volt headlights on and our shotguns at port arms. I caught a glimpse of something very dark-colored and man-sized running toward the backside of the island. I noticed an odor that I can only describe as a cross between a gray fox and a civet cat in the air. We ran after it out of the edge of the open marsh. It clearly could run faster without lights than we could with lights. I never got close enough for a positive visual. There's nothing on the backside of Little Tybee except miles of open salt marsh, tidal rivers and creeks, and dozens of smaller hammocks and small islands. No man could or would have exposed himself to that marsh in those temperatures. The marsh itself was frozen hard, but the creeks sure weren't. Under these conditions, a man would perish in minutes if he got all wet in salt water. We checked the only other boat landing on the island, the creek entrance to the northeast end of the island, and there was no boat or evidence of one being there. We walked the entire beach looking for prints or other boats, and we were the only boat on the beach. We discussed the incident a while and concluded that we just may have had a Sasquatch encounter.
Super Duke for World Bigfoot Radio is here with the Cryptid Report. When we return, more stories from around North America on the big hairy beast we love to call Sasquatch. Spaced Out Radio continues the final half hour next. Stay tuned. All right, we is clear.
Good example of the kind of reports that we get constantly. Road crossings. Majority of all the Bigfoot Class A visuals are road crossings. People just accidentally in the right place at the right time to see one. Let me go see if I can do anything about making the internet better here, even if we can't.
You're sounding great now.
Yeah, maybe we can get some visual here going here too.
Okay, fire up your camera. Let's see that beautiful mug. Let's see those locks. What locks? Oh, Duke's locks. Way to go, Susie B. Call out the locks. Thank you, Nikki, in Seattle. Appreciate you, hon. Susie B is readying her party game for our Las Vegas party. Second annual fan party in Las Vegas. Come meet Susie B. She will have Sharpies and 8x10 black and white autograph for all of you.
Hopefully that will hold. If not, I'll just switch back to audio only.
Oh, dude, you're good now.
All right, let me go take a quick sig break here.
Yeah, you know, we got a number of minutes. Oh, Eddie Rodriguez, thank you. Appreciate that. Very much appreciate it. Brian was great last night. Really was. Me Wyken, welcome. How you doing, buddy? TikTok. John Bucky, how you doing, man? Welcome. All right. Once again, I want to remind all of you, because you're probably sick of me saying it, but I want to see you all in Las Vegas, May 19th through 21st for our second annual Vegas fan party at the Golden Nugget. We are going to have an experiencers group. We're going to have a VIP party with all of our special guests. We are going to have a long YouTube show that I would love for all of you to come on into. And who knows, maybe there'll be a drive out to Area 51 or a poker tournament or something. We'll figure it all out, but it is going to be a great time. We want to see you all there. VIP tickets are $100. Regular tickets are $60. And we want to see you all there. Go to info@spacedoutradio.com and let us know how many tickets you need, and I will get you there. And, of course, I will be in San Francisco March 17th through 19th at UFOCon 2023. Go to UFOCon2023.com to get your tickets. We're going to be talking UFOs all weekend long. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'd love to see you. Yeah. Yeah.
UFOs.
UFOs.
Now them damn probe happy saucer jockeys can just stay the hell off my lawn. I'll tell you that much.
Mm-hmm. Susie B, if you want to dress up, and you go right ahead. You go right ahead. You'll probably be the only one, but that's okay. It starts with one.
I found out something cool vis-a-vis my impending trip to the
Hold
Nebraska.
on about 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway as we rounded third, and we're heading for home. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. Final half hour. Super Duke, World Bigfoot Radio, and the Cryptid Report. Duke, welcome back.
Always fun to be here. As I was just starting to mention while we were on the break, I got a little change in my schedule that I was trying to combine 2 trips into one to go out to the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference this spring for the second time. And as it turns out, I don't have to do that, which is great because it means we have more time before and after the conference. And why that's really cool is that my buddy Rich Soul, the guy that just did a show about Bigfoot eye glow on my channel, lives a 2-hour drive from there. That's where his research area is. So we're thinking we're actually going to go over there and spend one day with him doing Bigfoot field research and getting video. Oh, but wait, it gets better. Because although he's not speaking there this year, he's going to be there this year. And we're going to try and kidnap him and bring him with too. And the him I'm referring to is Blaine frickin' Tyler from Northeast Ontario, Canada, who's been on your show before, Dave. And
Yes.
So we will have the Invincible Bigfoot team there. I'm also going to have one of my local team members, Ashton, the one-man Viking Death Squad. He's going to be there with us providing security. So we should have a lot of fun there. And over in Nebraska, where I never got to go bigfooting before. And potentially we could even meet up with the Res Squatching boys up there on the Omaha Reservation, Barry and his team up there. They just turned out a documentary movie about those guys a couple months ago that's getting really great reviews. And a lot of people watched it and went, well, this is how to do a Bigfoot documentary. Oh, you other guys take notes. Yeah, it's pretty cool. He's been on my show a couple times before too. A good guy. Res Squatching, very respectful. They, thoroughly, since they're all the natives and they've been interacting with them for a long, long time, they're of the opinion that they're forest people. And they try and treat them with all the due respect that is due to the forest people that live in the forest. And they seem to get pretty good result out of that. So go guys, go. And of course, Rich, who lives over there close to him, tends to be on a lot of the stuff that they've got going on over there too. If it's anything major, he's usually involved. So really psyched there. May have an extra cool show of live research there with not only Rich Soul, but Blaine Tyler too. And let's not forget about Ashton, the one-man Viking Death Squad. So you want to hear another Bigfoot report? This one's...
You know what? I'm jealous about that because out of all the conferences I've been to, I've never been invited to a Sasquatch conference.
Well, but you don't do Sasquatch talks, Dave. I mean, they don't usually do the combination stuff.
I do, though. You're just not giving me any credit.
Well, we can always work on it for next year because here's part of next year's lineup, Dave. We got Blaine Tyler actually speaking there next year. And we've got Sabila Irwin speaking there.
I love Sabila Irwin.
And we've got the absolutely amazing real world Indiana Jones Robert Kreider speaking there next year. And the guy who was just a guest on my show a couple weeks ago, Richard Soul, is going to be speaking there next year. So they're already lining up the heavy hitters from the Bigfoot community to be doing it next year. And next year it's going to be at the gigantic state fairgrounds, who have been like trying to encourage them to go over there for a couple of years, and they're finally caving in and going there next year because it's like giant venue, so you can have much bigger conference and do 3 days instead of 2. So that's a plan. So we'll see about that, Dave. Maybe we can get you on that venue over there next year.
Maybe. I would love to go.
That would be super fun. Actually, it's right, not where we're going to be next year, but where we are this year is only like probably under 2 miles from the Nebraska Bigfoot Museum, which is literally where we stayed last year. Me, Christy Sci-Fi, Pat and Robin McCrae all stayed over there. And then, of course, had to be speakers too. But that place is just amazing. And the little old lady that puts on the event also owns the Bigfoot Museum. And she's just remodeling a whole bunch of it and adding another section onto it right now. And actually, Blaine Tyler donated a track cast from a Cripplefoot track that he got up there in Northeast Ontario. And I'm donating a picture of probably the largest X structure that's ever been documented, with me standing under it. And so we're making sure that she has some top-notch cool stuff to show in her museum over there. We're just having all kinds of fun over there in Nebraska, as much as is humanly possible in Nebraska, which isn't saying a lot. But it's it's more than the locals usually get.
I hear you there. All right, we got 15 minutes left. What kind of stories you got for us?
Okay, well, we read that one BFR report pretty much through. Let's read the other one. This one, again, a Class A sighting, is in Georgia, Liberty County, northeast part of Fort Stewart, in a training area surrounded by Highway 119, 144, and I-95. This area is relatively swampy with thick vegetation in most parts. Occurred on a dirt road. Would have to look at a map of Fort Stewart to show close to exact area. What he observed. Let me set up the story with some information that's pertinent to the situation. I was in the Army, stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia. My job at the time was as a gunner on a Bradley fighting vehicle. My unit was in the field conducting a training exercise, which was to last a few days. The Bradley fighting vehicle is an armored tracked vehicle that normally has a crew of 3. Vehicle commander, gunner, and driver. One night around 2 a.m., my vehicle was moving solo along a dirt road. We called them tank trails back then, in the northeast part of Fort Stewart. We were driving blacked out with no lights on. I was acting as gunner and had my head buried in the thermal sight system, which is used to engage targets at night. The thermal sight distinguishes differences in heat signatures and formulates a picture in either white hot or black hot, depending on what you've selected, against a red background. The driver had the hatch closed and was using a night vision device to view the road. The vehicle commander was standing up out of the hatch looking through the night vision binoculars. While moving along, if we encountered an intersection, I would slew the turret either left or right 90 degrees over the side of the vehicle to look down the road and clear it of any simulated enemy. At one particular intersection, I did this maneuver, slewed the turret over to the right side of the vehicle, and looked down the trail. It was clear that the vehicle made a right turn. After turning, we drove approximately 100 yards. The vegetation was extremely thick in this area due to being a swamp, and the vegetation about 10 to 12 feet high. As I was looking through the sight, I observed something come out of the vegetation approximately 50 yards in front of us from the right side of the road and walked across the road to the left and re-entered the vegetation. The dirt road's approximately 15 to 20 feet wide. This creature cleared the road in 3 steps at a normal stride. It didn't seem bothered by us or in a rush. I don't recall it looking in our direction. Its head and torso were straight, and it just walked on. Typically, while looking through the thermal sight at a person, you can distinguish clothing, hair, equipment they may be wearing, and be able to judge their height and the surrounding they are standing in. The creature appeared through the thermal sight to be one constant color from head to foot, having no clothes on, and to be fairly tall, between 7 and 9 feet. The first thought that came to my head was a Bigfoot. At the time, it all just seemed to make sense. For From watching documentaries and reading books as a kid, it all seemed to fit. Everything happened very quickly. I was shocked when I saw it, and I said nothing till after it went back into the woods. I announced to the vehicle commander over the internal comm system that something just walked across the road and it wasn't a man or an animal. He got spooked and told the driver to punch it. I wanted to stop and investigate, but no one else was having that. We were never able to go back, and now I can only vaguely point out a general area we were in. He also noticed that no one else wanted to hang around to check out the area in which the creature crossed. Due to the vehicle's noise, nothing was heard in the situation. He said he was the only witness of the three to observe the creature. Of course, he took a bunch of flack from his buddies the next morning at breakfast, but he had another soldier come up to him and state that his father had been stationed at Port Stewart during the 60s. The soldier was sincere in saying that his father had also observed what he thought was Bigfoot in the same part of the base as I had observed mine. Either he did not, or I've forgotten the other details he provided from this story. And this was about 2 a.m., totally dark, maybe a little bit of lunar illumination. I already give you the conditions of the swamp. Follow-up investigation by BFRO investigator Stephen Willis. He spoke to the witness on December 24th, 2006, and the witness is no longer in the military and now works as a police officer. His sighting was very short, approximately 4 seconds, during which the creature crossed an 18-foot wide road. An important element for me is the uniform coloration he observed through his thermal sight. This confirms my own observation of the thermal viewer during the BFRO's March 2006 Redwoods expedition in Northern California. The creature I saw was very tall and had a uniform heat signature. It had none of the bright spots seen on humans in clothes. Parenthetically, and I'm diverging from the script here, a guy in a Bigfoot suit, you can see it's a Bigfoot suit because of the escaping heat around where there's seams and a zipper and stuff like that. So no, Bigfoot suit don't work on thermal. Humans in clothes costumes would reveal the same pattern, show noticeable variation in surface temperature. Exposed skin stands out brightly, while the loose parts of clothing are cooler and darker. The figure observed at the thermal site in Georgia showed the same characteristics I observed in the California Redwoods, a uniform insulation density. The base camp of the Redwoods expedition was adjacent to a canyon where sounds had been heard earlier in the day. That night I was scanning the perimeter of the camp with a car roof-mounted thermal viewer. I observed a very tall figure walk to the edge of the camp, coming from the direction of the canyon where sounds had been heard a few hours before. It briefly walked out into the open, albeit in the dark, then reversed direction and walked rapidly back to the cover of the trees. It had the same smooth gait and pronounced arm swing seen in the Patterson-Gimlin video. From my position, the figure appeared to walk by a bush which provided scale for height comparison with a human. So the morning after the sighting, I asked a 5'7" person to walk the same path. The comparison from the same angle showed that the figure I observed the night before had to be at least 8 feet tall. The 5'7" person would have come up to the chest of the figure I observed. And so there's that report. Now we got some more military reports.
Duke, I got a quick question for you. A lot of these sightings tend to happen within First Nations reserves and or military bases that are, kind of a little bit out there from the reaches of society, or daytime society, cities and towns. Why do you think this is?
Oh, they know where to hide. Bottom line, these are good places to hide. There's not a lot of traffic running around in the woods. On military bases, they're kind of stuck doing whatever their routine, their order to do is, which doesn't include a lot of extra running around the woods time. Unless you're actually doing maneuvers or something out there, those woods are deserted all the time. I had an encounter on my show from a guy that was driving a tank, doing tank maneuvers on a military base. And Bigfoot went walking off away from the tank. They watched it for quite some time. Him and the driver of another tank both saw it. And this was in Germany. But there's no people wandering around inside of that area. It's strictly for military vehicle maneuvers and practice driving these big vehicles around. And nobody's walking around on foot in there. And the place is full of wild boar. So, of course, they're there. Big food source, nobody to pasture them. And they're not scared of tanks, apparently, or, armored fighting vehicles like the story I was just reading, So And the thing with the native tribes, a lot of these native tribes, not all of them had bad relations with the Sasquatch. Some of them had neutral and or even friendly relations with them. And so those, they've tended to still hang around with them after long periods of time. Some of these tribal lands, they didn't get moved on to them. It always was their tribal land. And, they've just continued to hang around there since who knows how many centuries they've been there. But yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. If you think about it, if you have like a huge national park or something, sure, you're going to get, if they're in there, which they are, there's going to be somebody that's going to see one randomly occasionally. But they've also got a whole hell of a lot of land to hide from you. So really, unless they want you to see them, the chance you're going to see them is even way, way less. Where on the reservations, it seems like they're a lot more laid back and they're not as worried about people seeing them. They tend to not hide as well or as much, or they just don't give that much of a rip because they're used to their neighbors. And the military bases, like I was saying, I don't think, other than places where they're doing field maneuvers with infantry, most of those woods, there's not anybody walking around in them really ever. Security around, high security bases and stuff, patrol around, and of course they've got security equipment rigged up there and stuff, but they get Bigfoot on those too. They get a lot of actual Bigfoot on that. They just don't report it very often because not supposed to.
How come? How come, Duke? How come they're not supposed to?
Yeah, you tell me. I mean, look at how many military encounters we've been doing here for the last couple of weeks. It's quite obvious they know they exist. There was that infantry manual that came from the Pac West from, what was it, the late 70s, that listed them as a known hazardous animal in the area. Oh, you could run into this, or this. Sasquatch is on the list. Oh, they've known about it that long. Why don't they? Well, obviously they don't have the option. It's all about the government deciding to admit that they're real. And let me point out something I pointed out in the chat room earlier today. It's our knuckle-dragging moronic government that is the problem. China, Russia, France, Germany, and Nepal all consider Bigfoot a real creature, which is on their endangered species list. So what's the problem with the idiots on this continent? You tell me, Dave.
I have no idea. No idea.
Yeah. Well, let me just put it out there publicly. You're not fooling anybody. We know it's out there and you can just quit lying about it. So here's another example. Nearby Crane Naval Depot, U.S. Naval Warfare Center, Martin County, Indiana. Martin Lawrence County lines, Indiana. Andy Keith, an employee of the Martin County Highway Department, was headed to work at about 6:30 a.m. with a 15-mile drive ahead of him down narrow county lanes that wind through the wooded hill county to the shoals. He topped a rise in the road a short distance from his trailer home when he saw a strange creature cross the road some 200 feet, or roughly 60-some odd yards in front of him. The creature appeared to be half man and half beast, not unlike the legendary Bigfoot, which is seen from time to time in the northwestern states. According to Keith, quote, "I got a real good look at him," unquote. Keith said the thing appeared to have come across an open field from the direction of Indian Creek and had disappeared into the heavy underbrush on the other side of the road. It was from 6 to 7 feet tall and had shoulders about 3.5 feet wide, according to Keith. It was covered with long black hair, streaked with gray, and had human facial features. Its arms hung to mid-thigh. Keith said when he saw it, the strange creature appeared to be in a hurry, looking neither to the right nor the left, and it took the road in about 3 5-foot-long strides that were curiously manlike. It left in its wake a sickening odor. According to Keith, it was the odor more than the fear that prevented him from following the weird being. It stunk, he said. When I smelled it, I thought it was kind of crazy to follow anything that smelled that bad. When asked whether Keith's neighbors in the sparsely populated hill community near the Martin Lawrence County line were skeptical about his unlikely encounter, Keith said, "They believed me. They just weren't sure what I'd seen." As the crow flies, excuse me, click down too far here. This sighting was not far from the Crane Naval Depot in the U.S. Naval Warfare Center in Perry, Indiana, also within Martin County lines. Keith's friends did suggest that maybe he'd sighted a bear, which is not unheard of in that heavily wooded area around the Crane Naval Base. But again, bears don't walk upright or take long leaping strides crossing a road. He says, others thought maybe I'd seen the hind end of a cow. Keith said, disgust. There was no doubt in Keith's mind what he observed, but putting a name to it was another matter. It was on the next Sunday that Keith and two Bloomfield men searched for some trace of the thing's earlier appearance. Keith discovered fresh footprints in a bottomland of a cornfield about a half mile southeast of where he originally sighted it. Some corn stalks had been eaten off in the area of the prints, which were at the edge of the field, but not in it. The footprints had to have been made sometime Saturday night or early Sunday, Keith explained, because it had rained earlier and there was no water standing in the indentations. There were two prints 20 feet apart. One was in a grassy area, but the other was clearly defined in the rain-softened field. Keith made a plaster cast of it. The plaster cast shows a 15-inch long foot that measures 7 inches wide at the widest part of the front, 4 inches at the base of the heel. The 5-toe print indicated the creature had only one big toe and no arch to its foot. Because of the depth of the imprint, Keith estimated the weight of this creature to be anywhere between 400 to 500 pounds. And he was probably accurate. He said one of the men with him when the tracks were discovered weighed about 250 pounds. The man tried in vain to make an imprint as deep as the one he found and couldn't come close to it, Keith said, even by stomping as hard as he could. Andy Keith's experience with Bigfoot isn't the first among the people in this small community. At least one man reportedly had an uncanny encounter with a strange creature 3 or 4 years earlier, and rumors have had Bigfoot roaming the area for some time. Keith said he sought no publicity, but word of the plaster cast proof leaked out. He also stated he had been the subject of numerous radio broadcasts and newspaper stories throughout southern Indiana. We asked Keith's wife, Pamela, if the idea of some unidentifiable man-beast prowling around the countryside near her isolated home frightened her, and she said, I don't think about it. Keith, however, didn't sleep right for weeks.
Don't blame him.
Yeah.
Super Duke, it's that time of the night for us to wrap things up from World Bigfoot Radio. Thank you so much, my friend.
All righty. Hope everybody enjoyed the stories, and, no shortage of military stuff. We can do more.
We'll do it all again very, very soon. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. Thank you to everyone tuning us in tonight as we got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking us in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horn up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the route train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. I got to show you something cool here, Super Duke. Give me 2 seconds here.
Hey, Danielle.
So I'm getting ready for work today. Okay, I'm getting ready for work today. And my daughter is over. And She's like, Grandpa, come in here. We got a surprise for you. So I'm like, okay. And this was my little buddy and I. Hold on, I'm going to go big here for a second. This was my little buddy and I today.
Nice.
You notice he is wearing a Paradise or a Guns N' Roses Sweet Child of Mine.
Wow. That kid became a fan really early.
Oh yeah. Yeah, him and I had a great time hanging on out.
Super
my little
cute.
man.
Super cute.
My little man. Yep, just trying to teach him how to get his horns up.
Yep.
Yeah, got to train him young, because last thing you want is somebody all of a sudden, getting addicted to country music or some bullshit like that. You don't need that.
70s disco.
Oh,
most reprehensible and horrible pseudo music ever on earth.
Oh, I would love to have seen your platform shoes back in the day.
Never had them. I was a metalhead, dude. Metal and punk.
And Super Duke.
Until I got to meet Metallica and guys like that, because I wasn't a poser listening to frickin' disco and that bullshit.
Uh-huh. Guaranteed you were wearing some seriously beautiful platforms.
Absolutely never.
Hobnail
boots don't count.
Were you wearing your bright white Adidas Stan Smith tennis shoes?
No, I had nice black tennis shoes, like all punk rockers and metalheads do.
Nice.
Still got black tennis shoes. Even wear them in the winter.
Nice. Random guy, John. John's asking, what has random guy said about Lazar? Can you state on the air exactly what he has shared? Yeah, I can. Random guy, with the people that he has talked to about Lazar, Lazar apparently at Area 51 is considered a joke. Random guy, he has friends who work there. Okay, I'm not saying if he worked there or not. That's not my place or business to say. Okay, but he has friends who have worked there, and like that, been there 30 plus years, and none of them ever saw him. And I said, well, my question to him was, okay, if they never saw him, that was great, but he wasn't there that long. He was only there for a couple of weeks, like 6, 8, 9 weeks. And
he wasn't at the base proper. He was at Area S4,
yeah,
which is not right next to it.
But either way, he would have still had to have taken the Janet jets in, because you can't drive in there. And nobody recalls seeing him on the flights. But the one curiosity that many people have regarding the Lazar story is how he knew about Element 115 before it had been released. That's the big one that many of the insiders looking into the Lazar thing, like insiders say from the base, okay, when they question it, that's one thing that they are looking into, is how did they know about it? Now, random guy's thoughts on Lazar is that he never worked at S4, okay, but he was some sort of plant by an alphabet agency to kind of bring this out. Why? We don't know.
Well, he had good info then, because he was able to take people near the base right when there were going to be UFO flights and have them there to observe them.
but here's the thing, and random guy said this about that. They probably weren't UFOs, and anybody who spends enough time in the desert can figure out the flight patterns, knowing that A, they fly when they go dark, and B, if you're out there long enough, you're going to be able to recognize the same lights, which was most likely our stuff.
And there's also the point that Richard Doty says he does have evidence that Lazar was there.
Oh, I hope so. I would love, Duke, I would love, and even random guy would love to see the stuff that has him there. But I guess when you work in that type of environment with those type of people, there are certain quirks, certain words, certain sayings that only people who have worked there would know what they are. And random guy says, I would love to meet Lazar because I would know within, from my friends within 10 minutes whether or not he worked there.
Well, one thing is certain about Lazar, he's got one of the coolest Batmobiles ever with his jet engine in it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the guy is smart. Let's not kid ourselves. The guy is smart. But, I mean, let's face it here. When you go in, what I've learned about Area 51 is when you go in and you're there for a couple of weeks. Okay. You just, you're not just flying in, day out. You're there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes a month or more. And then you get days off. They are scanning you and checking you all the time there.
Well, consider what you're saying here, too. If he's staying there 2 weeks at a time, let's assume, and he's there for 6 weeks total, he's only flying in and out, 4 times?
Yeah.
So, yeah, who's paying attention to that one guy coming in 4 times?
Well, and you know what, Duke? That's my argument. That's my argument on it, right? Is how would these guys know? Now, I think random guy knows things that he can't say as of yet. He could have been there. He could have been a laundryman. He could have been, like, from what I've learned about Area 51. Okay, number one, they check you when you go in, and they scan you when you go out to make sure you're not taking any toys. Okay, everybody on that base, from the janitors to the cooks to the people who are playing with the cool toys, everybody there is making 6 figures. Okay, and they get paid very, very well in order to keep their silence, so to speak. And he could have been there as a janitor or anybody because, number one, you're making great money. Number two, you're making you're going to be able to see what's inside. And inside, apparently it is like a mini city in there. It may not show up on radar, but they have bars and they have bowling alleys and baseball leagues with teams and basketball teams and they've got fancy restaurants. They've got like quick cafes to grab a slice of pizza. They've got just about everything there that a regular city would have. There's no crime on the base because you get caught with anything, you're fired. So they don't really need a police force there. You have your camo dudes and you have your MPs around, but there is no police force. They have their own hospital there. They have everything that they would need to be self-sufficient. And the amount of time Lazar was there, he may have seen some things or overheard some things, and it was his job to come out. Or maybe, and I want to believe this, trust me, I do, maybe he was working at a specialty program on crash retrievals there. That we'll never know. Unless those pieces of paper come out, we'll never know. So
Yeah, I haven't got a dog in that fight, so I don't really care one way or the other. Not a UFO guy.
yeah. Hi, Patricia Gisele. How are you? Excuse me. I apologize for the yawning, guys. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm tired too. Hurting today. Managed to tear some abdomen muscles so I can be having equal pain in front and back for a while. So rather than just back pain.
Right. Right. I always get beat up after taking I increased my dosage of my Ozempic. So I'm in 4 weeks of serious fat burning right now.
Nice.
Yeah. And so the side effects, like yawning, feeling tired, they hit me for the first like 2 days. So it's hard.
Yeah. As soon as it's not dangerous, too dangerous to start biking around here again, which I've really kind of been doing anyway. Get out and bike more during the day and get in better shape, so I'm ready to go and can actually get back up in the mountains and start hiking around again.
You're one of the in shape guys. I'm not.
I have to be in shape because literally 12 years ago I was in a wheelchair most of the time, and I went through 2 years of very extremely painful physical therapy to get to the point where I could walk around with 2 canes. Then it was another year and a half before I could walk around with 1 cane. And now I can walk around with no canes, but I got a limit of about 3 miles, and then my ankle gives out, and it's freaking painful. And I'm not walking around at sea level. I'm at 7,000-8,000 feet over rough terrain, up and down mountainsides with no trails.
Were you in an accident or something?
No, I have degenerative disc disease in my lower back. Plus, was also just several accidents, fights, and 30 years of construction work.
Yeah. I hear you.
I need Iron Man armor. I need an exoskeleton to hold me together because my bones aren't working anymore.
Yeah, I hear you.
At least I still got knees. My knees still work.
Well, bud, we'll talk to you on Thursday. I'm going to step away for a quick minute.
Alrighty.
You have fun, man. Hold on. Question for you from Paramarv here. Duke, I know you said you're not a UFO guy, but do you or Robin have any insight about the relationship between Bigfoot and the Greys? And I'll step away while you answer that.
Actually, we do. We did a whole show on that, which you can go look up on my playlist. It's called Sasquatch Full Disclosure. The government may not have done full disclosure of UFOs, but we did full disclosure of Sasquatch. And yes, they have some sort of relations with some of the apparent aliens, wherever the hell you think they come from, that are around here. And for the most part, it seems that they do not like the Greys. They do not get along with them. Through what Robin has been able to figure out, they used to actually be friendly with one of the other alien races that would oftentimes use them to keep an eye on us. Now, this other alien race isn't doing that anymore, so they're kind of left to free range it and do whatever they want. And now the Greys are trying to put pressure on them to be spies for the Greys and watch us all the time. And they're not down to that. They just as soon stamp them into a pothole, fellers look at them. So yeah, there is not apparently friendly relations between them. Although just like, humans are involved in major warfare or something, you can always find fifth column members that will turn on their own people. And apparently that's the case with them too. They got some bad ones that are working with them. But for the most part, it's like, no, The flying saucers start coming in, the Bigfoot run the opposite direction. They don't want nothing to do with them. And Robin's talked about that happening over at her place because lots of active UFO stuff going on over there. Her son-in-law was on her back porch and got spectacular UFO video that they sent to MUFON over there. And they confirmed that it was a, class 1 sighting. Absolutely wasn't anything we have. And very odd looking object. That's also on my channel on the World Bigfoot TV playlist. I think it's the first video on there. If you guys want to see that. Hadley, I don't know what you're talking about. Bigfoot talk, they sound retarded. Who exactly? You may be listening to recordings of things that are not actually Bigfoot. Go listen to the Sierra sounds. That's actual Bigfoot. Anybody else got a question? And yes, in case you're wondering, I have personally heard Bigfoot talk before in their own language and in English. And some of them, believe it or not, there are some of them out there that are interacting with humans on a daily basis, and they're actually teaching each other their languages. So I've heard some of their words that I know how to speak, and there's some of them that are just, their English is actually really good. As a matter of fact, it's so good, you almost want to record it and slow it down, because just like their own language, they speak it way the hell too fast. And you've got to actually sit there and digest a sentence and think about it for a minute and go, oh, they just said this. Not because they're mispronouncing anything, but because they're saying it so damn fast, it all just blurs together like one word. Asuka, if they learn from somebody how to speak English in a certain area, they tend to mimic that accent. I've heard a recording of one down in the Deep South, and it's been hanging around with the same family for 3 generations, and it not much of one, but it does have a little bit of a southern twang when it speaks some of the words. Forrest Louis, that's a really bad idea. There's a story about there's several stories actually from the moonshiners over on the East Coast in the mountains there, where the Bigfoot would eat the corn mash, because after they got done brewing and making the whiskey, they just take the mash and dump it out in the woods somewhere. Well, guess who's showing up and eating it? And then you got super drunk, dangerous Sasquatch wandering around the woods. Really bad idea. No, don't leave them beer. Don't get them drunk. First of all, they could probably drink 2 bottles of whiskey and like be barely buzzed even, because they're so gigantic. But yeah, no, don't drink that. Don't give them booze. Bad idea.
Hi, Asuka. How are you? Oh, they started asking you some questions there, Super Duke.
Yeah, I don't usually do Q&As. I never do live streams on my show or anything. So if any of them have questions, it's a fun time to be able to do it.
Yes. Ask away if you want.
Yeah, Derek, I'll give you 2 examples. If you're down in the Deep South and you see one and you want to say hello, you say Oseo. That's hello. If you're up here where I'm at or where Dave's at, they use the same word up here, I believe, that the ones over on the lower parts of the West Coast use, which would be Nahalio. But I just say both to mine because they understand what both of them mean. Kind of like saying Auf Wiedersehen. May not know German, but that means hello in some other language.
Duke, what is the closest you have been to a Sasquatch?
Touched them. I actually punched one by accident.
Yeah, but you were sleeping, were you not?
Yeah, but I was awake when I rolled over and punched it.
Thank you, Derek, for adding to the super chat tonight, my friend. Really do appreciate your awesome support of Spaced Out Radio, buddy. Thank you.
I actually did a show years ago with Kat Hansen talking about some of the words that she's gotten from them, and a lot of the words are very similar to the local native words. Like even Oseo is very similar to what the hello in the traditional language down there for the natives is, but it's not exactly the same. And then they have other things that are just completely different, have no relationship whatsoever to the local native language. And that's one of those which come first, the chicken or the egg thing, and you've got the Bigfoot and the local natives in the same area using kind of the same words for hello and some of the other really common words that you might use when you run into somebody. Kind of makes you wonder who came up with the words first, because they're really close to each other. Apparently they were communicating with each other at some point. That's the Sukaloo down in the deep south, Louisiana, and those areas down there. That's another Bigfoot tribe that lives down there. Bigfoot, I think they're relic hominids. That's what I think they are. They're big, weird people that don't want to wear clothes and live in the woods. They're just giant hippies. Think of them as giant nudist hippies. Susie B, six-toed Bigfoot. I don't know that there is such a thing. Six-toed tracks. You run into six-toed tracks, you're probably looking at Nephilim tracks. Bigfoot have 5 toes. Four-toed tracks, those are mountain giants. Three-toed tracks, we're not sure. Depends on what they look like. There are three-toed tracks that look like a Bigfoot track, but just with 3 big toes on it instead of a plethora of various sized toes like we have. And then the 4-toed tracks are the same thing. The 4 toes on them are the same size pretty much. So really peculiar looking. But apparently the 4-toed tracks are the mountain giants, which would also be called trolls in Scandinavia. Yeah, Susie B, all I can tell you is you probably got a giant over there. 6 toes, giants, Nephilim. The only other option for that one would be Genoskwa. So we would have to, how gigantic was the track? Let me ask you that. Because if it was gigantic, it could have been a Genoskwa too. But yeah, the other type of 3-toed track that they see occasionally looks like a giant bird track or a giant reptile track and has claws on it. That is definitely not a Bigfoot.
All right, get this one going.
Any other questions, guys? Hang around a little bit more and ask more questions if you got any.
Nikki is asking if you or Robin had conversations with the ones at Mount Baker.
Robin may have. I mean, I don't do any psychic stuff, so it's up close and personal for me unless somebody's got one on a phone. Which actually that's come up. I got to say hi to 2 different groups of Bigfoot on the other side of the country, one in Louisiana and one in Arkansas via telephone. And one was with Kevin Lang, and he had to go indoors to use a bathroom, and he just left his phone on speaker. So I was, yelling out words that I knew in their language and saying hi to them and tell him keep an eye on Kevin and everything. Don't let him get in trouble. And finally comes walking back out there, and he's, "What the hell were you saying to these guys? They're making such a racket. I could hear it inside the house." I said, "Dude, this is the longest distance Bigfoot call ever answered from Montana to Arkansas." Yeah, so I've done long distance calls to Bigfoot that have actually been answered from another state twice. My other techno claim to fame is that I believe I'm the first person that ever did satellite Sasquatching, because I figured out that up in the main area that I go up to, they like to build giant tree structures on ridge tops. And when I say giant, I mean giant. You can see them from satellite. And we tested that theory and found 3 of them on satellite view, and then went on the ground to where we had spotted them. And guess what? Giant tree structures. So yeah, I think I'm probably the first person that did satellite Sasquatching and found their structures via satellite. Well, it's handy when they make things out of, lodgepole pines, and they got structures that are 50, 60 feet tall. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I'm super psyched to get out there and go visit the biggies again. And, like I said, I got a new roommate that wants to go out there and do that. I got the one-man Viking death squad that's all ready to go. Hoping to have Michael Matt back this year again and get a bunch of time out there. And now I got an actual camper, so that's going to make it a lot easier for me to get out there and be there pretty much whenever I want to. Which, you might as well just anticipate that's going to be a lot this summer. I may not be doing a show every week because I may be a lot of time out in the woods doing research instead of putting shows out.
Well, I think that's about it there, Super D.
You got her?
About it. We want to say a big thank you tonight to Smithy, Louie, My Flock, Deb, Red Panda, Nancy H, Jeff, Obi Flett, Cat Chaser, Andrew, and Derek. The amazing super chats. And tomorrow night on the show, our good friend Chris Reinhardt from Discover Sasquatch will be with us to talk more of the big hairy beast. And then, of course, little Timmy Senor and Random Guy will be back for the UFO report. And Super Duke, thank you for coming on in. Want to remind everybody that go hit subscribe if you're brand new. Give us a thumbs up and leave a comment after the show, so that way we could take advantage of the algorithms that we're always battling on a daily basis. And yeah, Super Duke, we're going to say goodnight to you, my man.
Super Dave, take care, brother. I'll see you in a couple days. Love all you guys, and always remember, don't hug the Wookiee.
Take her easy, everybody.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.